Hello everyone, welcome back. This is a story from Her Silent Revenge, and it has taken a turn you absolutely didn't expect. Let's begin.
I had already left the house when I realized my phone was still on the kitchen counter, so I turned around and went back inside. As I stepped quietly past the study door, I heard my husband's voice on the phone with my sister, cold, almost bored. The brake line's cut. First hard stop on I-5. Your sister's funeral won't be far behind. He was talking about me, about the Lexus I was supposed to be driving right now. My hands started shaking, but I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. Instead, I walked away like nothing had happened. He thought I'd be dead within an hour. What he didn't know, his masterpiece had already cracked. Thank you for being here through every twist. Now I'm curious, where in the world are you watching this? Comment your city or country below. It means everything to know this story connected with you. A reminder, while fictionalized for storytelling, the lessons on betrayal and resilience matter. Any resemblance to actual people is coincidental. The Uber notification pings as I'm grabbing my coffee. Marcus, Toyota Camry, white, 2 minutes away. I grab my purse and laptop bag, mentally running through the Bellevue contract one more time. It's a gray Seattle October morning mist on the windows, the kind of weather that makes you grateful for Uber. Traffic on Monday is hell, and I need those 20 minutes in the back seat to review proposals before my 10 o'clock meeting. Ryan's voice drifts from his study as I pass through the kitchen. He's talking quietly, almost whispering. Probably a client who doesn't want to be overheard. He'd kissed my forehead earlier, told me to have a good day. Normal Monday morning. I walk to the end of our Madison Park Street and climb into Marcus's Camry. The house disappears behind me. Slate gray siding bay windows, the wedding gift from my father that Ryan called too generous, but accepted anyway. We're maybe 10 blocks away, passing 24th and McGraw, when I reach into my purse for my phone. Nothing. I dig deeper. Wallet, lipstick, granola bar, no phone. My chest tightens. I picture it exactly on the kitchen counter where I'd left it charging last night. I'm so sorry, I tell Marcus, but I forgot my phone. Can we go back? He glances in the rearview mirror. Yeah, no problem. We're not far. Thank you. I'll tip extra, I promise. He makes a U-turn and we head back toward Madison Park. My heart races for reasons I can't name. It's just a phone. We pull up at the end of my street again. 2 minutes. I promise, and hurry up the sidewalk. Instead of the front door, I cut left to the side gate. Faster this way, straight into the backyard, then through the side door into the kitchen. The latch clicks, softly. That's when I hear his voice more clearly. Ryan's study is just off the kitchen, the door cracked open. His voice drifts out, low and deliberate. The brake line is done. First hard stop on I-5, your sister's funeral will be soon. I freeze, one hand still on the door. A pause. Then his voice continues, softer now, almost tender. Don't worry, babe. Mom will handle the alibi if anyone asks. You'll get your cut after the insurance pays out. Clean. No one's going to question a 34-year-old woman with a bad heart dying in a car accident. My bad heart. The world tilts. My chest constricts, not panic yet, but the familiar flutter I've learned to dread over 7 years. The one that reminds me my body is a weapon someone else can trigger. I press my palm against the doorframe, forcing myself to stay silent, stay invisible. Yeah, I know. Ryan's voice shifts, becoming businesslike again. It's almost poetic. She's been hiding it for years. No one will suspect a thing. He's talking to Natalie, my sister, the woman who's supposed to love me. I don't wait to hear more. I move fast and silent, grab my phone off the counter and slip back out the side door. My hands shake so hard I nearly drop it. I close the gate as quietly as I can and half run back to the Uber. Marcus looks up as I collapse into the back seat, breathless. You okay? Yeah, let's go. He pulls away. My house recedes in the mirror. Ryan's study window faces the backyard, not the street. He has no idea I came back. No idea I heard. He thinks I'm in the Lexus right now. He thinks I'm driving to work, stopping at lights, merging onto the highway. He thinks his plan is in motion. My phone buzzes. An email from Jessica, my assistant, reminder Bellevue, meeting at 10. Need anything? I stare at the screen, the words blurring. The brake line is done. This morning, Ryan kissed my forehead. Have a good day, babe. He was checking, making sure I was leaving, making sure I'd take the car. Except I didn't, and he has no idea. You sure you're okay? Marcus asks again. "You look pale." "I'm fine, just forgot something important." "Yeah, I forgot my husband is trying to kill me, and my sister is helping him." We drive in silence. The city slides past Lake Washington, glittering through the mist ferries, crossing Elliott Bay, the Space Needle rising against gray sky. Normally, I love this view. Today, it reminds me how close I came to never seeing it again. Marcus drops me at the Whitmore Realty Group building at 7:42. I tip him 20 extra and thank him 3 times. The elevator takes me to the 14th floor. My office overlooks the financial district, my name on the door, Camille Whitmore, VP of Strategic Development. I've clawed my way here by 34 closed deals that made partners twice my age jealous. And my husband and my sister just tried to kill me for it. I sit at my desk and open the drawer, pull out the small canister I've kept for 7 years, nitroglycerin spray, 2 pumps under my tongue. I close my eyes, waiting for the burn to fade my heartbeat to slow. First hard stop on I-5, your sister's funeral will be soon. He's right. If I'd driven the Lexus, if I hadn't forgotten my phone, if Marcus hadn't turned around, I'd be dead by noon. The brake line cut just enough for a slow leak would hold through neighborhood streets. But the moment I hit the highway and needed to brake hard, the hydraulic pressure would drop. Pedal to the floor. At 60 miles per hour with semis and concrete barriers, I wouldn't stand a chance. Ryan knows this. He's an architect. He understands systems, stress points, failure thresholds. He designs buildings to withstand earthquakes. Apparently, he's applied the same precision to my death. And Natalie, my sister, the girl I grew up with, agreed to help him. I pull up a blank document. Not a resignation, not a goodbye. A plan. Outside cranes swing over construction sites. People drink coffee, complain about rain. Normal Monday things. I was supposed to be dead by lunch. Instead, I'm sitting here alive, holding the phone I almost left behind. The phone that saved my life. My fingers hover over the keyboard. I think about calling the police. Officer, I overheard my husband and sister planning my murder. But I have no proof. Just an overheard phone call and a paranoid wife's intuition. I think about confronting Ryan, but that's suicide. I think about running, but I didn't build a career by giving up when someone tried to cheat me. And this is the biggest cheat of all. I look at the Lexus key fob in my purse, sleek silver, the Christmas gift, with the card that read, "For the woman who drives my world." Evidence. Ryan designed my death with architectural precision. Natalie agreed to betray me for money. But here's what they didn't account for. I'm a VP of Strategic Development. Strategy is what I do, and I've spent my entire career finding the weak points in supposedly perfect plans. They want me dead. They're going to have to work a hell of a lot harder. Because the first rule of real estate, the rule that made me who I am, is this: never show your hand until you're ready to close the deal. Ryan thinks he's in control. Natalie thinks she's getting a payout. They think the plan is perfect. They think I'm driving the Lexus right now, seconds away from their carefully engineered accident. But I'm not. And by the time they realize I didn't take the car this morning, it's going to be too late. I had just overheard my husband and sister planning my murder, and I was supposed to die in my own car within the hour. But here's what they don't know. I didn't take the Lexus, and I'm not going to die. I'm going to win. I'm still staring at my computer screen when the memory hits me. It's been 7 years since I sat in that doctor's office, 7 years of carrying nitroglycerin spray in every purse, every desk drawer, every pocket. 7 years of lying. And now Ryan's turned my lie into a murder weapon. I close my eyes and let myself remember. 3 years ago, July 14th, 2020. I sat in Dr. Rebecca Morrison's office at Swedish Medical Center, watching my heartbeat on the ultrasound screen. The image looked alien, a grainy black and white cross-section of muscle that was supposed to keep me alive but had decided somewhere along the way to betray me. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, Dr. Morrison said. She was in her 50s, gray-haired and calm, the kind of doctor who delivered bad news. So many times she'd learned to strip the emotion from her voice. Your left ventricular wall is abnormally thick. Under conditions of extreme stress, physical or emotional, you're at risk of sudden cardiac arrest. I was 27 years old. I'd just been promoted to senior analyst at a commercial real estate firm, beating out candidates with twice my experience. I was supposed to be celebrating. How extreme, I asked. She looked at me over her reading glasses. A car accident. A physical altercation, intense emotional trauma, or even sustained high stress over time, the kind you'd experience in a high-pressure career, the kind I just signed up for. There's medication. She continued typing notes into her computer. Beta blockers can help, and you'll need to carry nitroglycerin spray for acute episodes, palpitations, chest tightness, anything that feels like your heart is racing out of control. Avoid excessive alcohol stimulants, intense exercise, and, Camille, she looked at me seriously. You need to tell your employer. You need to tell your family. This isn't something you can hide. But that's exactly what I did. I walked out of Swedish Medical Center with a prescription for nitroglycerin and a stack of pamphlets I'd throw away before I reached my car. I drove back to my apartment in Capitol Hill, parked in my spot, and sat in silence for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel. I thought about my father, Robert Whitmore, self-made developer, the man who'd taught me to read blueprints before I learned to read chapter books. The man who believed weakness was something you trained yourself out of. I thought about my job, the 80-hour weeks, the client dinners, the negotiations, where showing fear meant losing millions. I thought about dating. How do you tell someone on a third date that your heart might literally stop if you get too stressed? How do you build a relationship on a foundation of, by the way, I might die suddenly? So I decided no one would know. I filled the prescription at a pharmacy across town, paid cash, gave a fake name. I bought a small lockbox for my apartment and kept the nitroglycerin there hidden. At work, I told no one. At home, I told no one. When my mother asked why I'd started drinking decaf, I blamed acid reflux. And when I met Ryan Harlow 9 months later in May 2019 at a real estate networking event, I didn't tell him either. He was charming, handsome, successful. An architect with his own firm, the kind of man who listened when you talked and remembered details from conversations weeks later. We dated. We fell in love. He proposed on the Seattle Great Wheel, the city glittering below us, and I said yes without hesitation, and I still didn't tell him. I told myself it didn't matter. HCM wasn't a death sentence, it was a condition. Manageable. Millions of people lived with it. I'd manage my stress, carry my spray, and live a perfectly normal life. I told myself he didn't need to know. But what I really meant was I was afraid he wouldn't love me if he knew. I opened my eyes. The Seattle skyline stares back at me through my office window, the same city I saw from the Great Wheel, the night Ryan proposed, the same city I thought I'd spend my life in with him. Now sitting at my desk on October 16th, 2023, I finally understand. Ryan found out. I don't know when. I don't know how. But sometime between our wedding in 2021 and this morning, he discovered my medical records. Maybe he saw the nitroglycerin spray I keep in the bathroom cabinet. Maybe he found an insurance document, a prescription refill, a doctor's bill. And instead of confronting me, instead of asking why I'd hidden it, he saw an opportunity. A 34-year-old woman with a bad heart dying in a car accident. That's what he said this morning. Those exact words. He didn't just stumble onto my condition. He researched it. He understood it. He knew that sudden extreme stress, like a brake failure at 60 miles per hour on I-5, would trigger cardiac arrest. And even if the crash didn't kill me, my own heart would. The perfect murder. I pull up my insurance policy on my laptop. Northwestern Mutual $1.2 million term life insurance, purchased in 2018 when I was 25 and working my first real job in commercial real estate. It was part of a group plan standard benefits package, no medical exam required because I was young and healthy. When I was diagnosed with HCM in 2020, I'd been terrified the insurance company would find out and cancel the policy. But I did the research. The 2-year contestability period had already passed. As long as I hadn't lied on my initial application, which I hadn't because I didn't know I was sick, the insurance company couldn't touch me. The policy was locked in. $1.2 million payable to my spouse upon my death. Payable to Ryan. I laugh a single bitter sound. I'd been so proud of myself for securing that insurance young before rates went up, before anything could go wrong. I thought I was being responsible. I'd built my own death trap, and Ryan had found the key. I think about the past few months, June, July, August. Ryan asking strange questions. Do you ever feel stressed at work? Your heart ever race? Suggesting I see a cardiologist just to be safe. He wasn't being protective. He was testing me, seeing if I'd confess. And when I didn't, when I brushed him off and changed the subject, he knew I was hiding it, which meant he could exploit it, which meant no one would question it when I died. My phone buzzes, a text from Ryan. "Hey babe, you make it to the office, okay?" I stare at the message. He's checking. He expected a call by now from the police, from a hospital, from someone telling him his wife is dead. Instead, I'm here, alive, and he doesn't know. I type back, "Yeah, all good. Busy morning." 3 dots appear. Pause. Disappear. Finally, great. Love you. Love you. I set down my phone. He didn't just want me dead. He'd spent months engineering the perfect murder weapon, my own body. But here's what Ryan didn't account for. I'm still breathing. And now I know exactly what he's capable of. Natalie gets her cut. That's what Ryan said this morning. Not if, not maybe. Gets. As if it were already decided. As if my sister had already agreed to watch me die. I lean back in my office chair and close my eyes, trying to remember when it started. When the girl who used to follow me around our magnolia backyard, braiding dandelions into my hair, turned into someone who could plan my murder. But the truth is, I know exactly when. Growing up, I never understood why Natalie looked at me the way she did. We were only 18 months apart, close enough that people sometimes mistook us for twins, though we looked nothing alike. I had my father's dark hair and sharp features, his no-nonsense practicality. Natalie had softer edges, our mother's auburn curls, a dreamer's eyes that always seemed focused on something just out of reach. I was the one Dad took to construction sites on Saturday mornings, teaching me to read blueprints before I could read chapter books. I'd wear a tiny hard hat and steel-toed boots, and he'd explain load-bearing walls' foundation depths the way buildings grew from the ground up. Natalie stayed home. She'd sit at the kitchen table with sketch paper and colored pencils, drawing elaborate floor plans, furniture arrangements, color schemes for imaginary rooms. Beautiful work. Work that should have been framed, celebrated. Instead, Mom would glance over her shoulder and say, "That's lovely, sweetie," in the same distracted tone she used for grocery lists. Dad never looked at all. When I was 8, I came home from a job site visit, dirt on my jeans, chattering about cantilever beams. Natalie had spent the afternoon redesigning our living room on paper-new layout built-in bookshelves, a reading nook by the window. "Look what I made," she said, holding it up. Dad glanced over his newspaper. "That's nice, honey." Then to me, "Camille, tell your mom what you learned about load calculations." I didn't understand the look on Natalie's face then, the way something behind her eyes just dimmed. But I understand it now. We went to the same schools, Magnolia Elementary, Queen Anne High, but we existed in different worlds. I played soccer, joined debate team, took AP Calculus and Economics. Natalie took art classes, joined theater crew, spent lunch periods in the studio. "You're so lucky you got Dad's brain," Mom told me once. "Natalie's more creative." She said creative the way you'd say fragile, like it was something beautiful but useless, a china doll you couldn't actually play with. When I got into the University of Washington Foster School of Business on a partial scholarship, Dad took me to dinner at Canlis, the nicest restaurant in Seattle, the one with views of Lake Union and a dress code. He ordered champagne and told the waiter, "My daughter's going to run this city someday." When Natalie was accepted to Cornish College of the Arts for interior design, Mom baked a cake. Dad said, "That's great, honey. Very creative." I tried. God, I tried. I invited Natalie to UW football games, to sorority mixers, to networking events where she could meet potential clients. But she'd always decline, her voice tight and polite. "I'm busy," she'd say. "But thanks." The distance grew. By the time I graduated summa cum laude in 2011, we barely spoke. Dad threw a party, rented out a private room at the Columbia Tower Club, invited business partners, investors, family friends. He gave a speech about how proud he was, how I was proof that the Whitmore name meant excellence. Natalie sat in the back wearing a black dress, drinking white wine, saying nothing. 6 months later, she finished her interior design certificate program at a community college. No one threw a party. Dad said, "That's good, honey. Now you can get a real job." Mom shot him a warning look, but the damage was done. I wanted to say something to tell Natalie that her work was incredible, that she had talent Dad couldn't see, because he only valued things he understood. But I didn't. I was 22, starting my first analyst job at a commercial real estate firm, working 80-hour weeks, trying to prove I deserved the opportunities I'd been given. I told myself we'd reconnect later, when life slowed down, when we were older. I was an idiot. I found out the truth on a Wednesday in May 2012. I'd stopped by the house to pick up some old tax documents I needed for my apartment lease. Mom and Dad were in the kitchen and I heard them before I saw them, voices raised sharp with old anger. "You can't keep comparing them," Mom was saying. "I'm not comparing. I'm just saying Camille has drive. Natalie's drifting. She's finding herself Robert. Not everyone needs to be a developer." "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about the fact that she's not your biological daughter?" Silence. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand on the doorframe, unable to breathe. "That's not fair," Dad said finally, his voice low. "I've loved that girl since the day we brought her home. 6 months old, Linda, 6 months. I changed her diapers, taught her to ride a bike, paid for every art class she ever wanted. But you don't understand her. You never have. She's not Camille. She's not you. And she knows it. We agreed never to tell them." Maybe that was a mistake. I left without the documents, drove back to my apartment in a daze, sat on my couch for 3 hours trying to process what I'd heard. Natalie was adopted. My sister, the girl I'd grown up with, fought with, ignored because I was too busy building my perfect career, wasn't my biological sister at all, and she didn't know. I never told her. I told myself it wasn't my place, that it was Mom and Dad's secret to share. But the truth was simpler. I was afraid. Afraid it would make things worse. Afraid she'd hate me even more if she knew I was the real daughter and she wasn't. So I stayed silent. And the distance grew into a chasm. By 2018, Natalie had stopped returning my calls entirely. I'd leave voicemails, casual, breezy, "Hey, want to grab coffee?" and hear nothing back. I'd see her occasionally at family dinners where she'd be polite, distant, a stranger wearing my sister's face. That was the year I met Ryan. The year everything fell apart. But there was one person Ryan didn't have to work as hard to manipulate: Natalie. My sister had spent 30 years building resentment brick by brick. Ryan didn't create that wound, he just knew exactly where to press. And this morning, I heard proof that he'd succeeded. "Don't worry, babe. You'll get your cut after the insurance pays out." Babe. The word echoes in my mind, sharp and bitter. Not Natalie, not your sister. Babe. How long had they been sleeping together? How many times had Ryan kissed my forehead in the morning, then called Natalie in the afternoon? How many family dinners had I sat through, watching them avoid eye contact, thinking I was imagining the tension? I wasn't imagining anything. Ryan had weaponized Natalie's resentment and turned it into love, or what she thought was love. He'd made her believe that eliminating me was the only way they could be together. And she'd agreed. My sister, the girl who used to braid dandelions into my hair, had just conspired to murder me so she could sleep with my husband and collect insurance money. I'd spent 30 years wondering why Natalie hated me. Now I knew it didn't matter why. What mattered was that she'd let that hatred turn her into a killer. I should have seen it. Sitting here in my office, staring at the Seattle skyline, Ryan and I used to admire together. I replay every moment, every conversation, every red flag I convinced myself was green. The man I married was a ghost, a performance, and I applauded every scene. I met Ryan Harlow in May 2019 at a Pacific Northwest Real Estate Summit, one of those networking events where developers, architects, and investors circle each other like sharks, trading business cards and elevator pitches over lukewarm coffee. I was 30, newly promoted to VP of Acquisitions at Sterling Realty Group, wearing my armor-tailored blazer heels that made me taller than most men in the room. Confidence I'd spent a decade building brick by brick. Ryan was presenting his firm's latest project, a mixed-use development in Belltown with clean lines and innovative green space integration. His renderings were stunning. More importantly, he knew how to work a room. Confident, but not arrogant. Attentive, but not desperate. After his presentation, he found me by the coffee station. "You asked the best question in there," he said, nodding toward the conference room. "About the load-bearing walls and seismic retrofitting. Most people don't think about that." I shrugged. "My father's a developer. I grew up reading blueprints." Robert Whitmore's your father." His eyebrows rose. "That explains the sharp eye. I've always admired his work." We talked for 20 minutes, then an hour. By the time the event ended, he'd asked for my number, and I'd said yes. Our first real date was at the original Starbucks in Pike Place Market touristy Sure, but he said he wanted to start at the beginning of something. We walked through the market afterward, past fishmongers throwing salmon past flower stalls and street musicians, and he told me about growing up in Tacoma, about building his architecture firm from nothing, about the kind of Seattle he wanted to help create. "You have a gift for seeing what others miss," he told me, and I believed him. God, I believed him. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Ryan fit into my life like he'd been designed for it. Understanding when I worked late, interested in my projects, supportive without being overbearing. He never asked how much I made, never questioned why I drove a Lexus or carried designer bags. I thought he respected my independence. I didn't realize he was cataloging my assets. In December 2019, he proposed. We were on the Seattle Great Wheel at sunset, the capsule slowly rotating the city, spreading out below us in a glittering grid of lights. Elliott Bay was dark glass ferries cutting white lines across the water. He got down on one knee in that tiny enclosed space and pulled out a ring. "Camille Whitmore," he said, "you're the most brilliant, driven, beautiful woman I've ever met. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he finished the question. I thought I was the luckiest woman in Seattle. The wedding was October 2021, a small ceremony in the backyard of the Madison Park house my father bought us as a wedding gift. 70 guests, string lights hung between the trees, the smell of late roses and catered salmon. My father was the only one who hesitated. I found him in the kitchen an hour before the ceremony, adjusting his tie in the window's reflection. He looked older than I remembered, gray at the temple's lines around his eyes. "You look beautiful, pumpkin," he said, then quieter. "You sure about this?" "Dad, we've been over this. That architect doesn't deserve you. Ryan has his own firm. He's successful, smart. He's smooth." Robert turned to face me. "Too smooth. Men like that. They're always selling something. You don't even know him." "I know his type. The kind who says all the right things because he's practiced. The kind who doesn't ask about your money because he's already counted it." "That's not fair." "Maybe not." He sighed, then pulled me into a hug. "But if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to apologize. And if I'm right..." He pulled back his hands on my shoulders. "You call me, day or night." "You call." I'd laughed it off. Dad was overprotective, always had been. No man was ever good enough for his daughter. Ryan was charming, successful, attentive. He loved me. That was enough. Wasn't it? Now sitting at my desk, I think about all the things I missed. The way Ryan never asked about my work stress, even though I was pulling 80-hour weeks on the Bellevue project. The way he'd deflected every conversation about children with a smile and a, "let's just enjoy being us for a while." The way he'd insisted we consolidate our finances after the wedding, joint accounts make things easier but never contributed more than his half. I thought he was modern, respectful, a partner who saw me as an equal. I didn't see that he was preparing. I don't know exactly when Ryan found my medical file. It must have been sometime after the wedding, maybe, when I was organizing paperwork for our accountant, maybe when I left it out after a doctor's appointment. I'd been so careful for years keeping the nitroglycerin hidden, the diagnosis secret. But I'd gotten comfortable, complacent, and Ryan found it. I imagine him in my home office late at night while I was asleep upstairs, flipping through documents, seeing the words hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and understanding immediately what they meant, what they could mean. He didn't confront me, didn't ask why I'd hidden it, didn't offer support or concern. He saw an opportunity. A 34-year-old woman with a bad heart dying in a car accident. No one would question it. No one would investigate. The insurance company would pay out. The inheritance would transfer. Eleanor would provide the alibi. Natalie would get her cut. Clean, surgical, architectural. He designed my death the way he designed buildings, calculating load-bearing points, stress thresholds, points of failure. And I never saw it coming. Because I was in love. Because I thought the man who proposed on the Great Wheel, who laughed at my terrible jokes, who kissed my forehead every morning before work, I thought that man was real. But he wasn't. Ryan Harlow was a blueprint, a carefully constructed facade with nothing behind it but hunger. And my father, stubborn, overprotective Robert Whitmore, who I dismissed as old-fashioned and paranoid, had seen it from the start. That architect doesn't deserve you. Men like that are always selling something. You call me, day or night. I close my eyes and see Ryan's face this morning, calm and focused, as he talked about my murder. I see the man I married and realize I never knew him at all. I'd married the man of my dreams. I just didn't know he'd been planning my funeral since our honeymoon. I stare at my computer screen, but all I see is Eleanor Harlow's face. Ryan's mother has always been cold to me, polite but distant. The kind of woman who measures her words like ingredients in a recipe, never giving too much or too little. At family dinners, she'd ask about my work with the same detached interest she'd show a weather report. How nice, dear. That sounds challenging. More wine. I told myself it was just her personality. Some people aren't warm. Some mothers-in-law never really accept the woman who married their son. But this morning, replaying her name in Ryan's phone call, Mom will handle the alibi, I understand. Eleanor wasn't cold because she disliked me. She was cold because she'd already decided I had to die. It was Thanksgiving last year, November 2022. Ryan and I drove to Eleanor's condo in Capitol Hill, a tidy 2-bedroom with hardwood floors and too many framed photographs, the kind of place that felt more like a museum than a home. Everything perfectly arranged, nothing out of place, as if life itself had been carefully curated and then frozen. Dinner was formal. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, all the traditional dishes, all served on china that probably cost more than my first car. Eleanor asked polite questions. Ryan talked about a project in Bellevue. I mentioned the Redmond acquisition Sterling was working on. The conversation was pleasant, hollow. After dinner, while Ryan was loading the dishwasher, Eleanor pulled out a photo album. I want to show you something, she said, her voice soft in a way I'd never heard before. We sat on the couch, cream-colored, expensive, the kind you're afraid to spill on, and she opened the album across both our laps. The pages were filled with photographs of a young woman. Blonde hair, Ryan's eyes, a smile that could sell toothpaste. My daughter, Sarah, Eleanor said quietly. She died in a car accident in 2003. She was 21. I'd murmured condolences, unsure what to say. Ryan had mentioned a sister once or twice, but always in passing, the way you mention weather from years ago. I'm so sorry I managed. That must have been devastating. Eleanor's gaze was somewhere else entirely. Not on the photos, not on me, but on some fixed point in the past only she could see. She was supposed to inherit everything, she added. The words hung in the air, sharp-edged. I'm sorry, I said. The family estate, my late husband's business, everything. Eleanor traced her finger over one of the photos, Sarah in a graduation cap and gown, looking proud and young and alive. She was brilliant. Top of her class at UW Pre-Med. She was going to be a surgeon. She sounds incredible. She was. Eleanor closed the album with a soft thump. But God had other plans. There was something in her tone, not grief exactly, but something colder, sharper. You remind me of her, Eleanor said, turning to look at me. Same drive, same confidence. I'd thought it was a compliment. Now I know it was an accusation, because to Eleanor, I wasn't Camille Whitmore's successful VP, her son's wife. I was the woman who had everything Sarah should have had. I didn't think about that conversation again until this morning. But now sitting at my desk, I see it clearly. Eleanor has spent 20 years mourning a daughter who died at 21. 20 years living in the shadow of what if. What if Sarah had lived? What if she'd become a surgeon? What if she'd married someone wealthy, inherited the family estate, given Eleanor grandchildren who looked like Sarah? What if? And then Ryan married me. I imagine Eleanor at our wedding, watching me in my white dress standing in the Madison Park house my father bought us, watching me young, successful, alive, and thinking about Sarah in the ground. She didn't see a daughter-in-law. She saw a replacement, a living reminder of everything her daughter would never be. And when Ryan discovered my heart condition, when he came to Eleanor with his plan, she didn't hesitate. Because in her twisted logic, this wasn't murder. This was justice. Sarah was supposed to inherit everything, but she died, so Ryan, her baby brother, 5 years younger, the son who survived Ryan, deserved to take what should have been hers. My $1.2 million insurance policy, my $15 million inheritance from my grandmother, my $2.8 million house. She was supposed to inherit everything. Eleanor wasn't mourning Sarah when she showed me those photos. She was showing me what I'd stolen just by being alive. My phone buzzes on my desk, a text from Jessica, my assistant. "Your car's still in the garage, right? Want me to call a tow?" I stare at the message. The Lexus, still sitting in my garage brake line cut, waiting to kill whoever drives it. Ryan thinks I'm in that car right now. He thinks I'm on I-5 merging into traffic seconds away from the first hard stop that will send me through a windshield or into a semi-truck. He thinks his mother is waiting by her phone, ready to tell the police she was with him all morning. Coffee at her place. Alibi locked tight. But I'm not in the car. And suddenly, an idea begins to form. I think about Eleanor's Lexus, the same make and model as mine, but 10 years older. She'd complained about it at Christmas, how the transmission was failing, how the repair was going to cost $4,000 she didn't want to spend. "I might just get a new one," she'd said. Or maybe Ryan will let me borrow his truck until I decide. What if Eleanor doesn't have a car right now? What if when Ryan doesn't answer her calls, when the plan starts to unravel and panic sets in, Eleanor needs to get somewhere fast? What if she looks at my Lexus sitting in my garage and thinks Camille's not using it? She must have taken Uber to work. This one's available. My fingers hover over my phone. I could call the police. I could tell them everything, the overheard conversation, the cut brake line, the conspiracy, but I have no proof. Just a paranoid wife's word against her charming, successful husband. Or I could do nothing. I could leave the car exactly where it is, not drive it, not move it, not warn anyone, and see what happens. My chest tightens, the familiar flutter the warning sign. I reach into my desk drawer for the nitroglycerin spray, take 2 pumps, and wait for my heart to slow. Mom will handle the alibi. Eleanor Harlow, grieving mother, 63 years old, who spent 20 years trying to resurrect a dead daughter through sheer force of will. Eleanor, who looked at me and saw a thief. Eleanor, who agreed to help her son commit murder because she thought it was justice. Eleanor didn't just want me gone. She wanted to resurrect her daughter through my inheritance. And I was about to find out just how far a mother's love could twist into something unrecognizable. I need to understand how he found out. It's been an hour since I read Jessica's text about the car, an hour of staring at spreadsheets without seeing them, my mind circling the same question over and over. When did Ryan discover my secret? I close my office door, pull up my insurance policy on my laptop, and force myself to think like he did. The Northwestern Mutual policy I'd secured at $1.2 million, no medical exam required, because I was young and healthy, now haunts me. When I was diagnosed with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy 2 years after purchase, the contestability period had already passed. The policy was locked in, ironclad, payable to my spouse upon my death, payable to Ryan. I'd researched it obsessively after Dr. Morrison gave me the diagnosis, terrified the insurance company would find out and cancel my policy. But the law was clear, the 2-year contestability period had passed. As long as I hadn't lied on my initial application, which I hadn't, because I didn't know I was sick, the company couldn't touch me. The policy was ironclad, $1.2 million payable to my spouse upon my death, payable to Ryan. And Ryan knew it. The question was how. Then I remember. June 2023, 4 months ago. I'd been organizing paperwork for our accountant, Greg Sullivan, tax documents, FSA, receipts, medical records for reimbursement. I'd pulled my file from the locked drawer in my home office, the one I usually kept hidden, and spread everything across the desk. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Ryan was home working on renderings for a client in Belltown. I'd left the office door open, didn't think twice about it, and gone downstairs to make coffee. When I came back 15 minutes later, the file was still there. But something felt different. The papers were stacked too neatly, aligned, as if someone had rifled through them and then carefully put everything back in place. I dismissed it. Ryan was meticulous, an architect's habit. Maybe he'd straightened the stack in passing. Maybe I was imagining things. But I wasn't. I imagine him now walking past the office, glancing and seeing the medical file sitting open on the desk, seeing my name, seeing the letterhead from Swedish Medical Center, seeing the words hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. He would have stopped, read the diagnosis, the prognosis, the warnings. Patient exhibits abnormal thickening of left ventricular wall, high risk of sudden cardiac arrest under conditions of extreme physical or emotional stress. Prescribed nitroglycerin for acute episodes. Patient advised to avoid high-stress environments and inform immediate family of condition. And then he would have seen the date, July 14th, 2020. 3 years ago, a year into our relationship, 7 months after he proposed. I'd hidden it from him, from everyone. And in that moment, standing in my home office reading my secret, Ryan didn't feel betrayed. He felt opportunity. The week after he started asking questions. Casual, concerned. The kind of questions a loving husband asks. "You seem stressed lately," he said over dinner one night. "How's the Bellevue project?" "Intense," I admitted. "We're closing in 3 weeks. Lots of moving parts." "You ever feel chest tightness, heart racing?" I looked up sharply. "Why," he shrugged, smiling. "Just asking. You work so hard, I worry about you." I'd brushed it off, told him I was fine. But the questions didn't stop. A week later, I read this article about young professionals and heart health. Apparently, women in their 30s are at higher risk than people think. Maybe you should get a checkup. I'm fine, Ryan. Just to be safe, my mom's friend had a heart attack at 40. No warning. Dropped dead at a yoga class. That's terrible, but I'm healthy. I run 3 times a week. I eat well. I'm fine. Another week, there's a great cardiologist at Virginia Mason. I could make you an appointment. Just a routine screening. Ryan, I'd set down my fork, irritated now. I don't need a cardiologist. I'm 34 and perfectly healthy. Can we drop this? He'd raised his hands in surrender. Okay, I'm just worried. You work yourself to death sometimes. You work yourself to death. God, the irony. He wasn't worried. He was testing me, seeing if I'd confess, seeing if I'd crack under the gentle pressure and admit I'd been hiding a potentially fatal heart condition for 3 years. And when I didn't, when I brushed him off, got annoyed, insisted I was fine, he knew. I was hiding it, which meant no one else knew either. Not my parents, not my colleagues, not my doctor outside of routine appointments, which meant if I died suddenly, no one would question it. A 34-year-old woman with an undiagnosed heart condition dying in a high-speed car accident. Tragic, shocking, but plausible. And the insurance company would pay out $1.2 million. No investigation, no contestability period. The policy was 3 years old, far past the window where they could challenge it. Clean, legal, perfect. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Ryan spent 4 months planning this, from June to October, researching hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, learning how it works, learning that sudden extreme stress, physical or emotional, can trigger cardiac arrest, learning that a high-speed car accident with the adrenaline and panic of brake failure would be the perfect trigger. Then convincing Eleanor, convincing Natalie, setting up the alibi, buying the tools to cut the brake line. And all the while, he came home every night, kissed me, asked about my day, made dinner, laughed at my jokes, performed the role of loving husband while designing my death. And Natalie, Ryan had been grooming her for months, maybe years. I think about the past year, the way Natalie started showing up to family dinners again after years of absence, the way she'd ask Ryan about his projects, her eyes bright with genuine interest. The way Ryan would compliment her design work, suggest collaborations between their firms. You're incredibly talented, Natalie. Camille's lucky to have a sister like you. I thought he was being kind, bridging the gap between us. He was building an affair. Secret phone calls when I was at work. Late-night texts he'd delete immediately. Meetings at coffee shops in neighborhoods neither of us frequented. He'd tell me he was meeting clients. She'd tell no one at all. Ryan made Natalie feel seen, special, valued in ways our family never had. And then he offered her something she'd wanted her entire life, a way to replace me. After Camille's gone, we can finally be together. You'll have the money you deserve, the recognition, everything she took from you. Except Natalie didn't know, couldn't know, wouldn't let herself know that Ryan didn't love her either. She was just Phase 1's accomplice. And eventually, she'd become Phase 2's victim. But this morning on that phone call, Natalie believed she was his partner, his future wife, the woman he'd chosen over me. The no-contact rule I'd pieced together later, the one Greg Sullivan would testify about, applied only to Eleanor. Ryan's mother was the liability, the one who might crack under pressure, who might accidentally call him and create a digital trail. But Natalie Ryan trusted her, or rather he trusted that her desperation to be loved would keep her loyal. He'd been right, until I came back from my phone. My phone buzzes, a text from Ryan. "How's your morning thinking about you?" I stare at the message. He's checking again. Still expecting a call. Still waiting for news of the accident that never happened. I type back busy. Lots of meetings. Talk tonight. 3 dots, pause. Of course, love you. I set down my phone. He didn't just plan to kill me. He'd been conditioning me to trust him, sleeping with my sister and plotting the perfect crime. And if I hadn't forgotten my phone this morning, it would have worked. Ryan didn't plan this alone. The thought hits me as I stare at my computer screen, the LinkedIn profile of Greg Sullivan loading slowly. Ryan's business partner, co-founder of Vance & Associates, the technical genius behind every building Ryan's ever taken credit for. If Ryan was going to commit the perfect murder, he'd need allies, people who owed him, people he could control. And Greg Sullivan owes Ryan everything. They founded Vance & Associates 5 years ago, 2018, the year before I met Ryan. Greg was the brain structural engineer, seismic specialist, the guy who could calculate load-bearing tolerances in his head. Ryan was the face-charming clients closing deals, making investors feel like they were part of something visionary. It should have been a perfect partnership. But something about it always felt off. I remember last year's Christmas party, December 2022. Vance & Associates had rented out a loft space in Pioneer Square, exposed brick industrial lighting catered appetizers that cost more than most people's grocery bills. Ryan was holding court with potential clients, his arm around my waist, performing the role of successful architect with a beautiful wife. I'd stepped away to check my email, some crisis with the Redmond acquisition that couldn't wait until Monday. I'd found a quiet corner in what looked like a storage room, converted into a lounge, pulled out my phone and started typing. That's when I heard Greg's voice through the half-open door. "I can't afford to fix it now." His voice was tight, strained in a way I'd never heard before. "If the city inspects before we retrofit, we're done. I'm done. They'll pull my license and—" He'd stopped mid-sentence when he saw me standing there. "Just a client issue," he'd said quickly, forcing a smile. "Nothing serious. Merry Christmas, Camille." He'd walked away before I could respond. I hadn't thought much about it at the time. Architects dealt with demanding clients. Structural issues came up. It was part of the business. But 3 months later, March 2023, Ryan had mentioned it. We'd been having dinner at home. I'd asked about a Bellevue project I'd seen on Vance & Associates' website, and Ryan had laughed. "That one almost sank us," he'd said, casually refilling his wine glass. Greg made a major mistake on the load-bearing walls. Didn't meet seismic code. If the city had inspected before we caught it, he'd shaken his head. Would have cost us the whole project, maybe the firm. What happened? I fixed it. Paid $200,000 out of pocket to quietly retrofit before the inspectors showed up. Reinforced the walls, added the proper rebar, brought everything up to code. He'd taken a sip of wine. Greg was a mess. Thought he was going to lose his engineering license, his career, everything. That was generous of you. Ryan had smiled that charming smile I'd fallen for, the one that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. "Greg owes me now," he'd said. "Big time. He'd do anything for me. Anything." At the time, I'd thought he meant loyalty, gratitude, the kind of bond you build when you save someone's career. Now I know he meant leverage. I clicked through Greg's LinkedIn profile. MIT grad, 15 years of experience. Registered professional engineer in Washington State. Awards, certifications, recommendations from clients who praised his meticulous attention to detail and innovative structural solutions. And underneath all of it, a secret. A $200,000 mistake that Ryan covered up. a code violation that could have destroyed Greg's license, his reputation, his entire future. Ryan had the receipts, the emails, the before and after photos of the Bellevue project showing the inadequate rebar, the improper wall construction, the hasty midnight retrofit that no one was supposed to know about. And Ryan held it over Greg's head like a sword. Greg would do anything for me. I think about Ryan's plan, the cut break line, the perfect alibi, Eleanor handling the grieving son narrative, Natalie getting her cut, and Greg would have been insurance. The respectable business partner who'd vouch for Ryan's character if anyone questioned him. The structural engineer who'd testify that Camille's car accident was just a tragic mechanical failure. The friend who'd say Ryan loved Camille. He'd never hurt her. Or maybe Greg knew more than that. Maybe Ryan had told him pieces of the plan, not everything, but enough that Greg understood what silence meant. Enough that Greg knew what would happen if he said anything. Because if Greg went to the police about Ryan, Ryan would go to the city about the Bellevue project. And Greg would lose everything. Mutually assured destruction. The perfect way to guarantee silence. My phone sits on my desk screen dark. I need proof. I need something more than an overheard phone call and a paranoid wife's suspicion. I need Ryan to say something, anything that confirms what I already know. I open the voice memo app on my iPhone, hit record. The red waveform starts pulsing, picking up the ambient office noise, keyboard clicks, muffled conversations through walls, the hum of the heating system. Then I call my own voicemail. It's an old trick I learned from a colleague during a contentious contract negotiation. If you're recording a conversation and someone calls you, the voice memo keeps running in the background while you take the call. Not admissible in court in some states, but in Washington, a one-party consent state. It's legal as long as one party, me, knows about it. The voicemail picks up. My own voice. You've reached Camille Whitmore. I can't take your call right now. I let it play. Keep the line open. Set the phone down on my desk speaker on the voice memo still recording. And then my screen lights up. Ryan calling. My heart slams against my ribs, the familiar flutter, the warning. I reach into my desk drawer, take a hit of nitroglycerin, and wait for the burn to fade. Then I answer. Hey, I say, keeping my voice light normal. The voice of a wife who doesn't know her husband tried to kill her 4 hours ago. Hey, babe. Ryan's voice is warm, concerned. Perfect. I haven't heard from you all morning. Just wanted to make sure you're okay. Just wanted to make sure you're dead. I'm fine, I say. Crazy busy. The Bellevue contract is insane today. You sure you sound stressed? Just a lot going on. A pause. I can almost hear him thinking, calculating, trying to figure out why I'm not dead yet. Why there hasn't been a call from the police, the hospital, anyone. Did you drive to work today? He asks. And there it is. The question that confirms everything. Because a normal husband wouldn't ask. A normal husband would know or wouldn't care about the logistics of my commute. But Ryan needs to know. He needs to know if I'm in the Lexus, if the plan is still in motion, if I'm seconds away from the brake failure that will send me through a windshield on I-5. Took an Uber, I say. Traffic was brutal. Another pause, longer this time. Oh, okay, that's probably smart. I can hear it in his voice. The confusion, the panic just barely controlled. I didn't take the car. Which means his perfect plan just failed. Which means he has to recalibrate fast. Listen. Ryan says, his voice shifting, becoming gentle. I know you've been working really hard. Why don't we go out tonight, that Italian place you love in Fremont? My treat. That sounds nice. Great, I'll make a reservation. See you at 7. See you then. He hangs up. I sit in silence, staring at my phone, the voice memo still recording the red waveform pulsing with every breath. Ryan had called to check if I was dead, and I just recorded him doing it. I stopped the recording. My hands are shaking as I save the file Ryan_call_ October 16th _11:05 a.m. .m4a and email it to myself twice. Then I upload it to my personal cloud storage, 3 copies, just in case. Then I sit back and replay the conversation in my head. Did you drive to work today? A normal husband wouldn't ask that question. A normal husband wouldn't need to know the logistics of his wife's Monday morning commute. But Ryan needed to know, because if I'd driven the Lexus, I'd be dead by now. Brake failure on I-5, a tragic accident, another statistic. And when I told him I took an Uber, I heard it in his voice, the pause, the confusion, the barely controlled panic. His perfect plan just failed, and he has no idea I know. I grab my coat and walk out of the Sterling Realty building, heading east on foot. It's a gray October afternoon, the kind of Seattle weather that makes you want to stay inside. But I can't sit still. I need help. I need someone to believe me. The Seattle Police East Precinct is 6 blocks away, a squat brick building that looks more like a DMV than a place where justice happens. I push through the glass doors and approach the front desk. The officer behind the counter looks up from his computer. Nameplate Martinez. Mid-40s, tired eyes, the expression of someone who's heard every story twice. I need to report a threat to my life, I say. He slides a clipboard across the counter. What kind of threat? My husband sabotaged my car. He cut the brake line. I overheard him planning it this morning. Martinez looks up, skepticism flickering across his face. Did you witness him tampering with the vehicle? No, but I heard him say it. On the phone, he said the brake line is done. First hard stop on I-5, she's gone. You overheard a phone conversation? Yes. Was he talking to you? No. I came back to the house and heard him talking to someone. Martinez leans back in his chair. Ma'am, do you have any physical evidence? Photos of the damaged brake line, text messages, emails? No. That's the point. They made sure there wouldn't be a digital trail. No calls, no texts. They planned it so there'd be no evidence. My husband, his mother, my sister. He sighs. Not unkindly, but not helpfully either. Ma'am, I understand you're concerned, but we can't open an investigation based on a conversation you overheard. If you have proof, I have a recording. I pull out my phone, open the voice memo app, and play the call from 20 minutes ago. Ryan's voice fills the small lobby. Did you drive to work today? My voice took an Uber. Ryan, oh. Okay, that's probably smart. Martinez listens, his expression unchanging. When it ends, he hands my phone back. What am I listening for? He asks. He's checking to see if I drove the car with the cut brake line. He's checking if his plan worked. Ma'am, with all due respect, that sounds like a husband asking about his wife's commute. There's nothing incriminating in that recording. But the context isn't evidence. He taps the clipboard. If you believe your vehicle has been tampered with, you need to have it inspected by a certified mechanic. Get documentation. Then come back and file a formal report. We can take it from there. And if I get it inspected, my husband will know I'm on to him. He'll change his plan. He'll try something else. Martinez's expression softens slightly. I understand this is scary, but without physical evidence or an imminent threat, something we can document right now, we can't take action. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay tonight? Family, a friend? I stare at him. He thinks I'm paranoid, maybe abused, maybe delusional. But he doesn't believe me. Thank you for your time, I say, and walk out before he can offer me a domestic violence hotline number. I'm halfway back to my office when the realization hits me. Ryan designed this perfectly. No contact between him, Eleanor, and Natalie today. No phone calls, no texts, no emails. Just 3 people executing a plan they'd agreed on weeks ago. Ryan cuts the brake line at 6:30 a.m. Eleanor waits by her phone, ready to provide an alibi if needed. Natalie stays home, does nothing, says nothing. No digital trail, no proof. And even if I went to the police, even if I begged them to believe me, there's nothing to investigate until the accident happens. By then, I'd be dead. It's brilliant, really. Architectural. Every stress point accounted for, every potential failure reinforced. Except Ryan didn't account for one variable, me forgetting my phone. And now his plan is falling apart. But he doesn't know that yet. He thinks I'm still at work, oblivious, planning to drive home tonight in the sabotaged Lexus. He thinks he still has time. And that gives me an advantage. I stop walking. Stand on the corner of 4th and Union Rain, starting to mist down people brushing past me with umbrellas and to-go coffee cups. I think about the Lexus sitting in my garage, brake line cut, waiting. Ryan thinks I'll drive it eventually, tonight, tomorrow, whenever I decide to go home. But what if I don't? What if I leave it exactly where it is, untouched, undiscovered, and see what happens? I think about Eleanor, her broken-down Lexus in the shop, her refusal to learn how to use Uber, her panic when Ryan doesn't answer the phone when the plan starts to unravel. What if Eleanor needs a car? What if she looks at mine sitting in my garage and thinks Camille's at work? She won't miss it for a few hours. What if Eleanor takes the car instead? My stomach turns. That would make me, what, complicit a murderer by inaction? Or just someone who let a killer's plan collapse under its own weight? I don't know. I don't have an answer. But I know this: the police can't help me. My father would try to intervene and put himself in danger, and if I confront Ryan, I'm dead. Which leaves one option. I have to disable the car, make it undrivable, remove the temptation entirely. And then, wait, see who breaks the no contact rule first. See who panics. See who makes a mistake. I pull out my phone and text Jessica. Taking the rest of the day off. Family emergency. I'll check emails tonight. Then I order an Uber. Not to the office, not to a hotel, to my house. Because if I'm going to survive this, I need to take control of the one thing Ryan thinks he controls: the trap he set for me. The police couldn't help me without proof. And by the time I had proof, I'd be dead. So I'd have to architect my own survival and hope I didn't become a murderer in the process. The Uber drops me off at 1:05 p.m. The house is silent, empty. Ryan's at his office, or at least his calendar says he is. I don't know if I can trust that anymore. I don't know if I can trust anything. I unlock the front door, step inside, and listen. Nothing, just the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of a neighbor's lawnmower. I walk through the kitchen, past the office where I overheard Ryan this morning, and into the garage. And there it is. My silver Lexus ES gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Beautiful. Deadly. I stand there for a moment, keys in my hand, staring at it. This car was a gift to myself 3 years ago, a celebration of my promotion to VP. I'd driven it off the lot feeling like I'd finally made it, like I was someone. Now it's a murder weapon. I crouch down near the front driver's side wheel, pulling out my phone and turning on the flashlight. At first, I don't see anything. The tire looks fine. The wheel well is clean. But then I angle the light upward toward the brake line, and there, a fresh cut on the rubber brake line. Precise. Calculated. Not a slash or a hack, but a deliberate scored cut about 60% through the tubing. Not severed completely. Ryan didn't cut it all the way through because that would have been obvious. The brake fluid would have leaked out immediately, pooling on the garage floor. I would have noticed before I even started the car. Instead, he created a slow leak. At low speeds, backing out of the driveway, stopping at red lights, navigating residential streets, the hydraulic pressure would hold. The brakes would work. I wouldn't suspect anything. But at highway speed, after multiple applications, the pressure would drop. The fluid would seep out through the scored section faster and faster until there wasn't enough left to engage the brake pads. And then when I needed it most, merging onto I-5 traffic, suddenly stopping ahead of me. That first hard stop, the pedal would go straight to the floor. No brakes, no control, just momentum and metal and the inevitability of impact. First hard stop on I-5, she's gone. Ryan had engineered my death with the same precision he used to design buildings. I take photos, multiple angles, close-ups of the scored brake line, the clean edges of the cut, the faint gleam of brake fluid already beginning to seep through. The timestamp is visible in the corner, 1:17 p.m., October 16th, 2023. Evidence. Then I try to stand and the world tilts. My vision blurs at the edges. My chest tightens. Not panic, but something worse. Something familiar. The flutter that means my heart is forgetting how to beat properly, the electrical signals, misfiring the muscle, thickening in my left ventricle, deciding that right now, in this moment, it's had enough. I lean against the car, pressing my palm flat against the cool metal, and pull the nitroglycerin spray from my purse. 2 pumps under my tongue. The chemical burn spreads across my mouth, bitter and medicinal. I close my eyes, count to 30, and wait for my heartbeat to slow, for the world to stop spinning. Extreme stress can trigger cardiac arrest. That's what Dr. Morrison told me 3 years ago. And Ryan knew it. He'd read my file. He'd calculated that even if the car crash didn't kill me outright, the adrenaline and terror of brake failure at 60 miles per hour would finish the job. A heart attack behind the wheel, the perfect cover. When I can breathe again, I make my decision. I pop the hood of the Lexus and stare at the engine. I'm not a mechanic, but I know the basics. Dad made sure of that. Taught me to check oil change, a tire, identify the major components. And I know where the ignition coil is. It takes me 10 minutes to find the socket wrench in Ryan's toolbox, another 5 to disconnect the electrical connector and unscrew the mounting bolt. The coil comes free in my hand, a small cylindrical piece of metal and wiring that most people would never notice was missing. But without it, the car won't start. Can't start. The engine needs the coil to create the spark that ignites the fuel. No coil, no ignition, no movement. I carry it into the house and lock it in my desk drawer. Then I write a note on a piece of paper, my handwriting shaky but legible. Ignition coil removed for replacement. Do not attempt to start vehicle. CW. I place it on the dashboard visible through the windshield. Next, I grab my Coach work tote from the entryway and my black heels from the bedroom. I arrange them in the living room, tote on the couch heels by the coffee table, as if I'd come home from work, changed into something more comfortable, and left again. If anyone comes into this house, Ryan, Eleanor, whoever, they'll see the setup and think I've been here, that I drove a different car to work, that the Lexus is available. It's bait, a trap within a trap. Because I've disabled the car, it can't be driven. The note makes that clear. But desperation makes people stupid. And if someone decides to ignore the note, if someone gets desperate enough to think they can fix it themselves, hotwire it, force it to start, they'll be the one driving a car with a cut brake line. Not me. I stand in the garage one last time looking at the Lexus. Ryan had designed this to look like an accident, a mechanical failure, a tragedy that no one could have predicted. But he didn't account for me coming back to the house, for me checking the car, for me knowing what he'd done. And now the trap he set for me is sitting here waiting for someone else to spring it. I think about Eleanor, her broken down Lexus in the shop, her refusal to learn Uber, her panic when plans fall apart. I think about the spare key Ryan gave her months ago, the key she could use to let herself into my house if she needed to. What if Eleanor comes here? What if she sees the Lexus, sees the note, and thinks I can fix this? I can make it work. What if she takes the car? My stomach turns. That would make me complicit, wouldn't it? A killer by omission, by inaction. Or would it just make me someone who left a broken car in her own garage and couldn't control what happened next? I don't know. I don't have the answer. But I know this, I can't stay here. I can't sit in this house waiting for Ryan to come home, waiting for the plan to fully collapse. I need to disappear, go somewhere he can't find me, somewhere safe. At least for tonight. I pull out my phone and call Swedish Medical Center. Hi, this is Camille Whitmore. I'm a patient of Dr. Morrison's. I'm experiencing chest pains and palpitations. Can I come in for monitoring? The nurse on the other end doesn't hesitate. Absolutely. Come to the cardiac unit. We'll get you checked in. I hang up, grab my purse, and walk out of the garage without looking back. I just sabotaged the sabotage. The car couldn't start. The note was clear. But I didn't know that desperation makes people do dangerous things, and someone else was about to prove it. At 2:45 p.m., I'm standing in my garage, the ignition coil hidden in my coat pocket, my Coach bag and heels arranged in the foyer like evidence of a normal departure. I pull out my phone and order an Uber. The driver, a woman named Patricia in a silver Honda Accord, arrives 8 minutes later. I lock the side door behind me and slide into the back seat. Swedish Medical Center, First Hill, I tell her. The drive takes 18 minutes through Monday afternoon traffic. Rain streaks the windows. I watch the familiar streets of Madison Park blur into the dense grid of downtown Seattle, my heart beating a rhythm that has nothing to do with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and everything to do with the choice I've just made. By the time Patricia drops me at the hospital entrance at 3:03 p.m., I've disabled location services on my phone and set Do Not Disturb to allow calls only from one contact, Dad. Dr. Rebecca Morrison meets me in the cardiac monitoring unit on the 4th floor. I tell her everything the overheard conversation this morning, Ryan's voice saying, "First hard stop on I-5, she's gone? The brake line scored 60% through for a slow leak. The ignition coil I removed to make the car undrivable. Officer Martinez's patient explanation that without physical evidence, the police can do nothing." Dr. Morrison listens without interrupting. When I finish, she closes the door. "You're telling me your husband planned to murder you using your own heart condition as cover," she says quietly. "Yes. And you sabotaged his sabotage, but now the car is a death trap for anyone who tries to drive it. Yes, she's silent for a long moment. Then she reaches for my chart. I'm admitting you for cardiac monitoring. Officially, you came in with chest pain and palpitations. We'll run continuous EKG Holter monitoring cardiac enzyme panel standard protocol for HCM patients with acute symptoms. You'll stay here overnight, possibly 48 hours under my direct care. Relief floods through me. Thank you. But Camille, she adds, her voice firm, you need to understand the risk. If someone else drives that car, someone who doesn't know about the brake line, they could die. The words hit like a physical blow. I thought of that, of course. In the garage with the wrench in my hand, in the moment I pulled the ignition coil free. But hearing it spoken aloud makes it real in a way that terrifies me. I know, I whisper. Dr. Morrison adjusts the telemetry leads on my chest and checks the IV line in my arm. Get some rest. I've instructed the nursing staff to restrict visitation to immediate family, only excluding your husband. If he shows up, security will turn him away. After she leaves, I lean back against the pillows and stare out the window at the rain-soaked skyline. By now, Ryan must be checking his watch, wondering why I haven't called. By now, Eleanor, pacing her Capitol Hill apartment, has probably dialed his number half a dozen times, desperate to know if the plan worked, why I'm not answering my phone, why the Lexus is still sitting in the garage. Her anxiety must be building with each unanswered call, each minute of silence. And Natalie, sitting in her Queen Anne loft with her half-finished interior design portfolio, is probably starting to feel the first whisper of doubt. I close my eyes and listen to the steady beep of the telemetry machine. I've just turned Ryan's perfect murder into chaos. The fire hose is back on the wall, the ignition coil is in my pocket, and the Lexus sits in the garage like a coiled snake. I just don't know who will be foolish enough to try driving it. At 4:30 p.m., my phone buzzes. Dad's name lights up the screen. Hi, Dad, I say, keeping my voice steady. Camille Elizabeth. Robert Whitmore's voice is tight-controlled. I got 3 security alerts from your house this afternoon. 1:07 p.m. motion detected in the garage. 1:12 p.m. side door opened and closed. 1:15 p.m. garage door sensor triggered again. I called you 3 times, starting at 1:30. You didn't answer. Your mother told me to wait, that you were probably just busy. But when the police called about Eleanor at 4, I knew something was terribly wrong. My pulse spikes. I'd forgotten he's the primary account holder on the ADT system because he bought the house as my wedding gift. Of course he got the alerts. Of course he tried calling while I was in the Uber with my phone on silent. I'm sorry, Dad. I was driving. I came home to grab some medical records and then came straight to Swedish for a checkup. I must have triggered the sensors when I went through the side door. There's a pause. Long enough for me to hear the doubt underneath his carefully measured tone. A checkup, he repeats. Just routine cardiac monitoring. Dr. Morrison wanted to run some tests. Another pause. My father has a combat veteran's instinct for danger, a sixth sense honed over 2 tours overseas. I can hear it now, the hesitation of a man who doesn't quite believe what he's being told, but can't articulate why. Camille, he says slowly, is Ryan there with you? No, he's at work. Good. The word comes out flat final. If you need me, I can be there in 20 minutes. I'm fine, Dad. I promise. I'll call you tomorrow. After we hang up, I set the phone on the bedside table and stare at the ceiling. Somewhere across town, Ryan is realizing something has gone wrong. Somewhere else, Eleanor's panic is climbing toward a breaking point that will soon make her do something reckless. And I'm here safe behind the walls of Swedish Medical Center, watching the trap I didn't fully spring begin to close on someone else. The telemetry machine beeps its steady rhythm. Outside, the rain continues to fall. I've made myself safe, but I've also set a bomb I can't defuse. And I have no idea who's about to pick it up. I won't know what happened until hours later, but this is what the security footage, police reports, and Ryan's own phone records will eventually reveal. At 3:30 p.m., while I'm lying in the cardiac monitoring unit at Swedish Medical Center, Eleanor Harlow stands in her Capitol Hill apartment, staring at her phone. She's called Ryan 47 times since 7 this morning. No answer. The plan was simple. No contact until after the accident. But Eleanor is losing control. Her Lexus has been in the shop for a week, transmission failure, $4,000 to repair. She's been driving a rental Toyota, but it's due back today. When Ryan doesn't answer, panic sets in. What if Camille didn't drive to work? What if she took an Uber? What if the plan failed and the police are already involved? What if Ryan has been arrested and she's the only one left exposed? At 3:32 p.m., Eleanor grabs the spare key to my house, the one Ryan gave her 6 months ago, just in case, and drives her rental to Madison Park. She parks 2 blocks away and walks to the side gate, her hands shaking. She unlocks the side door and steps into the kitchen. The alarm starts beeping immediately. 30 seconds to disarm. Eleanor fumbles with the keypad. Ryan told her the code once over the phone, but she wrote it down wrong. She tries 3 combinations. The alarm blares. She covers her ears and runs into the foyer, breathing hard. Then she sees my coach bag on the console table. My work heels beside the door. Her panic shifts to confusion. If Camille left for work, why are her bag and shoes here? Did she take a different bag? Did she drive at all? Eleanor walks into the living room, then the garage. The silver Lexus sits exactly where it should be. She opens the driver's door and slides behind the wheel, turning the key. Nothing. She tries again. The dashboard lights flicker, but the engine doesn't turn over. Her pulse hammers in her throat. She pops the hood and climbs out, lifting it with trembling hands. The ignition coil is missing. On the workbench beside the car, she finds a note on Madison Auto Repair letterhead. Ignition coil removed for inspection. Reinstall before driving. October 16, 2023. Today's date. Eleanor stares at the note, her mind racing. Camille knows. She has to know. She found out about the brake line and took the car to a mechanic. But then why are the bag and shoes here? Why didn't she drive the car to the shop herself? Unless Eleanor's breath catches, unless Camille doesn't know. Maybe she just noticed the car wasn't starting this morning and called a mobile mechanic. Maybe the mechanic found a problem with the ignition coil, removed it, and left this note saying he'd come back to reinstall it. Maybe Camille went to work another way, planning to deal with the car later. Eleanor looks around the garage and sees the ignition coil sitting on the workbench, still connected to a length of wire. She picks it up. It's heavier than she expected. She doesn't know how to install it, but Ryan does. She pulls out her phone and dials his number again. It rings 4 times, then goes to voicemail. Ryan, she hisses into the phone, her voice breaking. I'm at Camille's house. The ignition coil is missing. There's a note from a mechanic. I think she knows. Call me back right now. She hangs up and waits. 2 minutes. 5. No response. Eleanor looks at the coil in her hand, then at the engine. She's not mechanically inclined, but she's seen Ryan work on cars before. The coil slots into a bracket near the top of the engine. There are 2 bolts holding it in place and an electrical connector. She leans over the engine bay, fitting the coil into position. Her fingers slip twice. The connector clicks into place. She tightens the bolts as far as she can with her bare hands. Then she climbs back into the driver's seat and turns the key. The engine roars to life. Eleanor exhales, her whole body shaking. She doesn't have time to think this through. If Camille called a mechanic, that means she might have mentioned the brake problem. If the mechanic inspected the brake line, he might have seen the cut. There might already be a police report. She needs to get this car away from here before anyone finds it. She needs to drive it somewhere safe, maybe to Ryan's office, maybe to a parking garage downtown, and figure out what to do next. She doesn't realize that the brake line Ryan scored 60% through has been leaking brake fluid for hours. She doesn't know that the first gentle stops out of the driveway will work fine, but that every pump of the pedal is draining the system further. At 3:52 p.m., Eleanor backs the Lexus out of my driveway and turns south toward downtown. By 4:05 p.m., she's merging onto I-5 South near the convention center, accelerating to 50 miles per hour. The brake pedal feels soft but functional. She tells herself it's fine. Everything is fine. She just needs to get to Ryan's office on First Avenue, park the car in the underground garage, and wait for him to call her back. At 4:23 p.m., traffic ahead of her slows abruptly. Construction crews have closed 2 lanes for emergency water main repairs. Cars brake hard. Eleanor lifts her foot off the accelerator and presses the brake pedal. It sinks to the floor. She pumps it once, twice. Nothing. The Lexus doesn't slow. Ahead of her, a white F-150 pickup is stopped completely in the right lane. Eleanor yanks the wheel left, trying to swerve into the next lane, but there's no space. She slams both feet onto the brake pedal, her full weight pressing down. The pedal goes all the way to the floor. The Lexus hits the pickup at 45 miles per hour. The airbag deploys with a deafening crack, slamming into Eleanor's chest. But the force of the impact is too great. Her head snaps forward, striking the steering wheel before the airbag fully inflates. The windshield spiderwebs. The hood crumples like foil. By the time the first witness calls 911, Eleanor Harlow is already dead. The Seattle Fire Department arrives at 4:31 p.m. Paramedics pronounce her dead at the scene. The medical examiner will later determine that she died of severe traumatic brain injury, blunt force trauma to the frontal lobe consistent with high-speed vehicular collision. The King County Sheriff's Traffic Unit photographs the wreckage. An investigator inspects the brake line and finds it scored 60% through with evidence of catastrophic brake fluid loss. At 4:45 p.m., they run the Lexus's registration. The car is registered to Camille Elizabeth Whitmore, and Eleanor Harlow, the 62-year-old woman who died behind the wheel, has no legal relationship to the vehicle at all. Dr. Rebecca Morrison discharges me at 6:15 p.m. with strict instructions to return immediately if I experience any chest pain or palpitations. "Your heart handled the stress well today," she says, removing the last telemetry lead from my chest. "But Camille, you need to be careful. What you've been through, what you're still going through, puts enormous strain on your cardiovascular system." I nod, exhausted beyond words. Detective Laura Bennett is waiting outside my hospital room. She's in her mid-40s, sharp-eyed with the kind of controlled intensity that makes me think she doesn't miss much. "Mrs. Whitmore, I need to escort you home. We've ruled Eleanor Harlow's death accidental pending further investigation, but your statement about the Overheard murder plot has opened a formal inquiry. We need to secure your vehicle as evidence and conduct a full forensic examination. Have you talked to my husband?" I ask. Bennett's expression tightens. "We called him at 5:45 to inform him of his mother's death. He was understandably distraught. We asked him to come to the precinct for questioning, but he said he needed time to process the news. We haven't been able to reach him since." My pulse quickens. "So you don't know where he is?" "No, which is why I'm driving you home myself and why we'll have 2 patrol officers stationed outside your house tonight." She pauses. "Mrs. Whitmore, do you have somewhere else you could stay? A friend, family member?" I think of my father, but Robert is 70 miles away in Magnolia, and asking him to drive here at night feels like admitting I can't handle this. "I'll be fine," I say, "if the police are outside." Bennett studies me for a moment, then nods. "Lock your doors. Don't open them for anyone except law enforcement. If your husband shows up, call 911 immediately. Understood?" "Understood." The drive to Madison Park takes 18 minutes. Bennett parks in front of my house. 2 patrol cars are already there, officers visible in the front seats. She walks me to the front door and waits while I unlock it. "Check the room," she says. "I'll wait here." I walk through the dark house, flipping on lights. Kitchen empty. Living room empty. Bedroom empty. When I return to the foyer, Bennett is still standing at the threshold. "All clear?" she asks. "All clear." "Lock the door behind me. We'll be right outside." She hands me a card with her direct number. "Call me if anything feels wrong. Anything at all." After she leaves, I lock the deadbolt and set the alarm. My phone buzzes a text from my assistant, Jessica. "Hope you're feeling better. Let me know if you need anything tomorrow." I type back a quick thanks, then notice the notification count. 23 missed calls, all from Dad. Before I can call him back, my phone rings. Robert Whitmore's name fills the screen. "Dad," I answer. "Where the hell have you been?" His voice is tight, barely controlled. "I've been calling you for 3 hours. I got another ADT alert at 3:30. Then the police called me asking about Eleanor Harlow. What the hell is going on, Camille Elizabeth?" I sink onto the couch, suddenly aware of how much my throat hurts from the telemetry leads, how bone-tired I am. "It's a long story, Dad. Can I call you back in the morning?" "No." His tone leaves no room for argument. "I'm 20 minutes away. I'm coming over." "Dad, the police are outside. I'm safe. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hangs up. I set the phone on the coffee table and close my eyes. My father's protective instincts honed over 2 combat tours and 30 years of fatherhood are probably screaming at him right now. I should have called him hours ago. A floorboard creaks behind me. I freeze. Where were you? Ryan's voice comes from the kitchen, eerily calm. I spin around. He's standing in the shadows near the refrigerator, his face a mask I don't recognize. How did he get in? The alarm was set. The police are outside. Hospital I manage. Chest pain. They monitored me all day. He steps into the light. His eyes are red-rimmed. His tie loosened his hair, disheveled in a way I've never seen. My mother is dead. Ryan, I know. I'm so sorry. She was driving your car. Another step closer. Why was she driving your car, Camille? My hand moves toward my phone on the coffee table. I don't know. I was at the hospital. I didn't even know she had a key. You should have been in that car. His voice breaks rage and grief twisting together. I cut the brake line. I scored it 60% through so it would leak slowly. First hard stop on the freeway, you'd be dead. Heart attack behind the wheel. Clean, perfect. The insurance would pay out, no questions asked. But you weren't in the fucking car. My blood turns to ice. You took an Uber. He continues, his voice rising. You forgot your phone and came back inside. You heard me on the call, and you sabotaged my plan. You removed the ignition coil. You left your bag and shoes like you'd already left. You made my mother think you'd driven a different car. And when she panicked, when she tried to fix what you'd broken, she died instead. He's 5 feet away now. I'm trapped between the couch and the wall. Ryan, the police are outside. I came through the back. Through the Hendersons' yard, over the fence, through the garage. Your cameras don't cover that angle. His hands clench into fists. You killed my mother, Camille, and I'm not going to let you live to tell anyone about it. He lunges. I grab my phone and throw myself sideways, but he's faster. His hands close around my throat, and I claw at his wrists, gasping for air. Black spots dance across my vision. My HCM compromised heart hammers against my ribs, each beat a desperate plea for oxygen. Then the front door explodes inward with a deafening crack. Get your hands off my daughter. My father, Robert Whitmore, 65 years old but still carrying the coiled strength of a man 20 years younger, barrels into Ryan like a freight train. Ryan releases me. I collapse onto the floor, wheezing as Dad slams Ryan against the wall and pins him there with one forearm across his throat. I called you 23 times. Dad roars, his face flushed red. I knew this bastard was dangerous. Sirens wail outside. Detective Bennett and 2 uniformed officers burst through the shattered doorway, weapons drawn. SPD hands where I can see them. Dad releases Ryan and steps back, hands raised. The officers grab Ryan, forcing him face down onto the floor and cuffing his wrists behind his back. He's still screaming, his voice raw and broken. She killed my mother. I planned everything perfectly, and she killed my mother. The brake line was supposed to kill her, not... Mr. Harlow, you have the right to remain silent. Bennett interrupts, her voice cold and professional. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. But Ryan keeps talking, the words pouring out in a torrent of rage and grief. I spent months planning this. The insurance policy, the brake line, the no contact rule so there'd be no digital trail. It was perfect. It was fucking perfect, and she ruined it. Bennett glances at me, then at the 2 officers' body cameras, their red recording lights blinking steadily. She kneels beside me. Mrs. Whitmore, are you injured? I touch my throat. It's tender, probably bruised. I'm okay. Dad crouches beside me, his hands shaking as he cups my face. My girl, he whispers. I should have come sooner. You weren't too late, I whisper back. You were right on time. Bennett hauls Ryan to his feet. He stopped shouting now, his face blank with shock as the reality of what he's just confessed sinks in. The officers lead him out through the broken door, reading him his Miranda rights. Through the shattered frame, I can see neighbors gathering on the sidewalk, phones raised, filming everything. Bennett lingers at the threshold. We'll need your formal statement tonight, she says, and we'll need that phone. She nods at my cell still clutched in my hand. I look down. The screen shows a voice memo recording started at 7:04 p.m. still running. 11 minutes of Ryan confessing to everything. It's all here, I say quietly. Bennett's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in her eyes. Satisfaction maybe, or vindication. Then let's finish this. I need to stop here. Because what I'm about to reveal isn't just about Camille, it's about the second woman in Ryan's plan. If you think Natalie knew everything, you're wrong. If you think Ryan only wanted to kill one person, you're also wrong. Type the number 2 in the comments, so I know you're ready to face the truth. Please note the story from here contains fictional elements and intense content. If you'd rather not continue, you can stop the video right now. Detective Laura Bennett calls me Wednesday morning, 4 days after Ryan's arrest. We have a witness who wants to talk, Greg Sullivan. He says he has evidence. I meet them at the precinct. Greg looks like he's aged a decade since I last saw him at the Vance & Associates holiday party. His hands shake as he pushes a USB drive across the table toward Bennett. I should have come forward sooner, he says, his voice hoarse. But Ryan had leverage on me. Bennett opens her laptop and plugs in the drive. Walk us through it, Mr. Sullivan. Greg takes a shaky breath. 3 years ago, Vance & Associates designed a mixed-use development in Bellevue, the Cascade Heights project. During construction, the city inspector flagged a structural issue load-bearing walls that didn't meet seismic code. The fix would have cost $200,000 and delayed the project 6 months. Ryan told me to keep quiet. He paid for the retrofit himself out of pocket and told me the city would never need to know. That's bribery and code violation, Bennett says flatly. I know. Greg's face crumples. He said if I stayed loyal, the secret stayed buried. If I didn't, if I ever crossed him, he'd report me to the city and my architectural license would be revoked. I'd lose everything. I remember Ryan mentioning Greg at dinner once, casually, affectionately. Greg's a good partner. He knows what loyalty means. I'd thought it was a compliment. 3 weeks ago, Greg continues, Ryan and I met a client for dinner at Metropolitan Grill. Afterward, we went to a bar in Pioneer Square. Ryan had 4 whiskeys. He started talking about you, Camille. Greg pulls out his phone and plays an audio file. Ryan's voice fills the room, slurred and thick with alcohol. Camille's heart condition is a fucking golden ticket, man. She dies in a car crash, stress-induced cardiac arrest. No one asked questions. Natalie's already all in, called her this morning, told her the brake line's ready. She's so desperate to be with me, she'd do anything. And Eleanor, God, Eleanor's been pushing me for months. Secure the family's future, she keeps saying, as if I'm doing this for her. A pause, ice clinking in a glass. I just gotta be patient. Phase 1, Camille. Phase 2, Natalie. 18 months, maybe 2 years. Then I'm set for life. 19 million. And nobody suspects a thing because they're all playing their parts perfectly. My stomach turns to ice. Bennett stops the recording. You recorded this on September 28th. Yes, I didn't know if he was serious. I thought maybe it was just drunk talk bravado, but then I saw an email. Greg swipes through his phone and shows us a screenshot. It's a draft email from Ryan's personal Gmail account, never sent, titled phase_2.txt. The timestamp reads October 2nd, 2023, 2 weeks before Eleanor died. Ryan left his laptop open at the office. Greg explains. He'd gone to a meeting. I was installing a software update and saw the draft folder. I couldn't help it. I opened it. Bennett leans forward. What did it say? Greg's voice cracks. Everything. He forwards the screenshot to Bennett's email. I watch her read it, her expression hardening with each line. Then she turns the laptop toward me. The email is clinical, methodical, written like a business plan. Phase 2 timeline. October 2023. Sees accident, brake line, cardiac stress. Payout $1.2 million life insurance. Northwestern Mutual me as beneficiary. October 2023 to October 2024. Mourning period. Minimal contact with N. Appear devastated, isolated. November 2024 to June 2025. Gradual reconnection with N. Shared grief over C's death. Emotional support evolves into relationship. July 2025, proposed to end small ceremony courthouse. Low profile. August 2025, and inherits $15 million from Whitmore Trust per grandmother's 1998 irrevocable trust if C dies before age 40, with no children assets transferred to siblings, and his legal sibling via 1995 adoption. Also inherits $2.8 million Madison Park house. C's separate property passes to N per intestate succession as next of kin. Total N's assets $17.8 million. June 2026. Vacation to Lake Chelan. Kayaking trip. Tragic drowning accident. N can't swim. No witnesses. As spouse, I inherit all assets. Final total $19 million. $1.2 million from C plus $17.8 million from N. I can't breathe. Bennett's voice cuts through the roaring in my ears. Mr. Sullivan, why didn't you come forward when you first saw this? I was terrified, Greg whispers. Ryan would destroy me professionally. I kept thinking, hoping it wouldn't actually happen, that Camille would be safe, that Ryan wouldn't really go through with it. Tears streamed down his face. But then Eleanor died, and I saw the news. Ryan's mother killed in Camille's car brake line cut, and I realized he actually did it. He murdered someone. And if I didn't speak up, Natalie would be next. His gaze meets mine raw with guilt. I'm so sorry, Camille. I should have warned you. You're here now, I manage. That's what matters. Bennett ejects the USB drive and seals it in an evidence bag. Mr. Sullivan, this recording and email constitute material evidence in a capital murder conspiracy case. You'll need to give a formal statement, and you'll likely be called to testify at trial. I understand. You may also face charges related to the Bellevue Code violations. Greg nods slowly. I know. I'll cooperate fully, whatever it takes. After Greg leaves Bennett and I sit in silence, the weight of what I've just learned presses down on me like a physical thing. Ryan didn't just want me dead. He planned to systematically eliminate my entire family, me first, then Natalie, and walk away with $19 million. He was going to marry my sister, I say quietly, make her fall in love with him, then kill her. Bennett's jaw tightens. He's not going to get the chance. She stands and gathers the evidence bags. We'll forward this to the prosecutor immediately. Combined with your testimony, the recording from your house, and now this Ryan Harlow isn't walking out of prison for the rest of his life. I think about Natalie, who hasn't returned any of my calls since Ryan's arrest, who believed Ryan loved her, who thought she was going to have a future with him. She has no idea how close she came to being his second victim. Does Natalie know? And I ask. Not yet. We'll need to interview her as part of the investigation. Bennett pauses at the door. Camille, I'm sorry, I know this isn't easy. It's not about easy, I say. It's about making sure he never hurts anyone again. Bennett nods. Then let's finish this. I stare at the laptop screen at Ryan's meticulously planned timeline. Phase 1, Camille. Phase 2, Natalie. Each of us a stepping stone to $19 million. Ryan had engineered the perfect double murder. He just didn't count on me coming back for my phone. 8 months after Ryan's arrest, the trial finally begins. The courtroom is packed reporters in the back rows, my father beside me in the gallery, Natalie conspicuously absent. King County Senior Deputy Prosecutor David Sterling stands at the prosecution table, methodical and calm. He's built this case brick by brick since October, and now he's ready to present it. The months between Ryan's arrest and this moment have been a blur of depositions, forensic reports, and sleepless nights. I've given my statement a dozen times. I've walked investigators through every detail, the overheard conversation, the sabotaged ignition coil, Ryan's confession while his hands were around my throat. But now sitting in this courtroom watching 12 jurors study Ryan with careful assessing eyes, it all feels surreal. Ryan sits at the defense table in a dark suit, his face drawn and hollow. His attorney Marcus Webb, a former prosecutor with a reputation for winning impossible cases, leans close to whisper something. Ryan doesn't react. Sterling's opening statement lasts 40 minutes. He walks the jury through the evidence piece by piece, the premeditation, the motive, the execution, the catastrophic failure that killed the wrong person. This is not a crime of passion. Sterling says, his voice steady. This is calculated murder. Ryan Harlow spent months engineering his wife's death. He discovered her hidden heart condition and weaponized it. He cut her brake line with surgical precision. And when his plan failed, he tried to finish the job with his own hands. The defense's opening is shorter. Webb paints Ryan as a grieving son driven to temporary madness by his mother's death. He suggests the brake line damage was coincidental, caused by road debris or mechanical wear. He questions my credibility, suggests I'm paranoid, vindictive, inventing a conspiracy where none exists. Eleanor Harlow's death was a tragic accident, Webb says, and Camille Whitmore's accusations are the product of a troubled mind trying to make sense of random misfortune. But then the evidence starts. Sterling presents 3 recordings. First, Ryan's voicemail to me at 11 a.m. on October 16th, his voice casual, concerned. "Hey babe, just checking in. Did you drive to work today?" Oh, a simple question. But in context, after I'd overheard his murder plot after he'd cut the brake line, it becomes sinister. He was checking to see if his plan had worked. Second, the recording Greg Sullivan made on September 28th at a Pioneer Square bar. Ryan's voice thick with whiskey bragging about his scheme. Camille's heart condition is a fucking golden ticket. Phase 1, Camille. Phase 2, Natalie. 18 months tops. Then I'm set for life. Third, my phone recording from 7:04 p.m. on October 16th. 11 minutes of Ryan confessing in my living room, his rage spilling over as he detailed the brake line, the insurance payout, the no-contact rule designed to eliminate digital evidence. I cut the brake line. I scored it 60% through. First hard stop on the freeway, you'd be dead. But you weren't in the fucking car. The courtroom is silent as Sterling plays each recording. I watch the jurors' faces shift, skepticism melting into shock, then hardening into something colder. Webb objects repeatedly. He argues the recordings were obtained without Ryan's consent, that they're inadmissible. But Washington is a one-party consent state. Greg and I had every legal right to record conversations we were part of. The judge overrules each objection. Then comes the physical evidence. A Seattle police forensic technician testifies about the search of Ryan's office at Vance & Associates on October 18th. In the bottom drawer of Ryan's personal filing cabinet, investigators found a hacksaw and a metal file. DNA analysis completed in November matched Ryan's genetic profile on both tool handles. Metallurgical testing showed microscopic traces on the file's teeth, consistent with the brake line's steel alloy composition. Webb attacks this aggressively. My client is an architect. He keeps tools in his office for model building materials testing. The presence of these tools proves nothing. But Sterling is ready. Then why? He asks the forensic tech, were there fresh metal shavings inside the file's teeth shavings that match the exact chemical composition of a 2019 Lexus ES brake line? The tech adjusts her glasses. There is no innocent explanation for that match. Next, the brake forensics expert. Dr. Amanda Brennan has worked with the NTSB for 23 years, analyzing mechanical failures in transportation accidents. She's testified in 47 trials. When she takes the stand, even Webb seems wary. Dr. Brennan explains the brake line damage with clinical precision. The line was cut to exactly 60% depth, not 50, not 70, 60. This creates a slow leak. At low speeds with gentle braking, the system functions normally, but under high-pressure emergency braking, the compromised line fails catastrophically. Brake fluid evacuates completely. The pedal goes to the floor. She pauses, looking directly at the jury. This failure mode requires specific knowledge of hydraulic systems, how pressure propagates, where stress concentrates, how materials fracture under load. It's not random vandalism, it's engineering. Sterling introduces Exhibit 47, Ryan's master's thesis, from the University of Washington, completed in 2014. The title reads Structural Failure Analysis in High-Pressure Systems Applications in Architecture and Mechanical Engineering. Mr. Harlow wrote this thesis as part of an interdisciplinary program, Sterling explains. He worked with both the architecture department and a mechanical engineering professor. Chapter 6, co-authored with Professor David Grant, analyzes hydraulic line failures under cyclic loading. It includes detailed diagrams of brake system vulnerabilities. The thesis is 127 pages long. Sterling projects page 89 onto the courtroom screen, a technical drawing showing a brake line's weak points with annotations about scoring depth leak rates and catastrophic failure thresholds. Ryan Harlow wrote the blueprint for my attempted murder. I whisper to my father. Dad's hand finds mine. His grip is tight. Sterling's voice cuts through the silence. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant didn't just plan to kill his wife. He wrote an academic paper explaining exactly how to do it 20 years before he met her. Webb cross-examines Dr. Brennan for an hour, trying to establish reasonable doubt. Could road debris have caused similar damage? Could Eleanor have cut the line herself in a moment of suicidal desperation? Could the 60% depth be coincidence? Dr. Brennan shuts down each theory with calm, data-driven rebuttals. Road debris creates irregular, jagged damage. This cut is smooth, deliberate, made with a fine-toothed tool. Suicidal brake line sabotage is vanishingly rare and leaves different tool marks. And 60% depth is not coincidental. It's the optimal compromise between structural integrity and guaranteed failure under stress. Someone calculated this precisely. When Dr. Brennan steps down, I see two jurors in the front row exchange glances. They believe her. The prosecution rests its case after 6 days of testimony. As the courtroom empties for the day, I catch Ryan's eye across the gallery. For just a moment, his mask slips. I see the rage underneath the cold, calculating fury of a man who planned everything perfectly and watched it all fall apart. Then he looks away. Tomorrow the defense begins. And somewhere in Seattle, Natalie is deciding whether to tell the truth about what she knew and when she knew it. Natalie takes the witness stand on a gray July morning, and I barely recognize her. She's lost weight, 20 pounds, maybe more. Her cheekbones jut sharply beneath hollow eyes. The confident, polished woman who used to design interiors for Seattle's elite has been replaced by someone who looks like she hasn't slept in months. David Sterling approaches the witness box with careful deliberation. Natalie is here under a limited immunity agreement testifying against Ryan in exchange for reduced charges. Conspiracy to commit murder, downgraded to accessory, after the fact with a recommended sentence of 5 years probation and 500 hours of community service. Without her cooperation, she'd be facing 20 years in Purdy Women's Prison. Ms. Whitmore. Sterling begins his voice measured. When did Ryan Harlow first approach you about killing your sister? Natalie's voice is barely audible. June 2023. Speak up, please. She swallows hard. June 2023. He told me Camille had stolen everything from me, that she didn't deserve the inheritance, the career, the life she had, that if she was gone, we could finally be together. And you believed him? Yes. The word comes out broken. I'd loved him for years, since I met him at Camille's wedding in 2021. I feel my father's hand tighten on mine in the gallery. Sterling continues relentless. Explain what you mean by loved him for years. At the wedding, Ryan was kind to me. He asked about my interior design work. He remembered details, things no one else in the family bothered to learn. Her eyes find mine across the courtroom. After I found out I was adopted in 2012, after I cut ties with the family, Ryan was the only one who reached out, just to check if I was okay. I thought he cared. When did those feelings become romantic? Natalie's voice drops to a whisper. By 2022, I was in love with him. I knew it was wrong he was married to my sister, but I couldn't help it. And in early 2023, he told me he felt the same way. Sterling pulls out a manila folder. Ms. Whitmore, did you and Ryan Harlow engage in a sexual relationship while he was married to Camille? The courtroom goes completely silent. Natalie closes her eyes. Yes. When did it begin? March 2023. Murmurs ripple through the gallery. Even Ryan looks down at the table, his jaw tight. Sterling introduces Exhibit 71, a series of text messages between Ryan and Natalie dated March through October 2023. He reads several aloud, his voice flat and clinical. March 18th, 2023, 11:47 p.m. Ryan, I can't stop thinking about you. Natalie, we shouldn't be doing this. Ryan, I know, but Camille doesn't understand me the way you do. June 15th, 2023, 2:34 a.m. Ryan, after the insurance payout, we'll have enough to start your design firm in California. New life, just the two of us. Natalie, are you sure this is the only way? Ryan, she's sick anyway, babe. We're just accelerating the inevitable. September 24th, 2023, 2:17 a.m. Natalie, what if something goes wrong? Ryan, it won't. I've planned every detail. By November, we'll be free. September 29th, 2023, 8:45 p.m. Ryan, I love you. This is for us. Natalie, I love you too. Sterling sets the phone down. Ms. Whitmore, did Ryan tell you the life insurance policy was worth $1.2 million? Yes. Did he tell you about the $15 million trust fund Camille would leave behind if she died? Natalie hesitates. No, he only mentioned the insurance. He said we'd use it to start fresh in California. Did he tell you he planned to marry you after Camille's death, inherit that $15 million through you, then kill you within a year, and keep everything? Natalie's face goes white. What? Sterling pulls up a document on the courtroom screen, the Phase 2 email Greg Sullivan discovered on Ryan's laptop. The jury has already seen it, but this is Natalie's first time. She reads it in silence. I watch her expression shift from confusion to horror to devastation. I didn't know, she whispers. I swear I didn't know. What didn't you know, Ms. Whitmore? That he was going to... Her voice breaks completely. He said he loved me. He said we'd build a life together. He said after Camille was gone, we'd finally be happy. Did you believe him? Yes. She's sobbing now, shoulders shaking. I thought he meant it. I thought I was special to him. But I was just another mark. Another person to use and throw away. Sterling lets the silence stretch. Then quietly, Ms. Whitmore, did you know Ryan had cut Camille's brake line on October 16th? Yes. He called me that morning around 7 to tell me it was done. The courtroom erupts in whispers. Judge Morrison raps his gavel once. Did you try to stop him? Sterling asks. Natalie looks at her hands. No. Did you warn Camille? No. Why not? Because I was angry. The words come out raw, stripped of pretense. I'd spent my whole life in Camille's shadow. She was the real daughter, the successful one, the one everyone loved. And when I found out I was adopted, it felt like proof I never belonged. Ryan made me feel like I mattered, like I deserved something more. So I convinced myself that what we were doing was justified. Sterling's voice is cold. You convinced yourself it was justified to help murder your sister so you could be with her husband. Yes. Natalie's face crumples, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. She turns toward me in the gallery, tears streaming down her face. Camille, I'm so sorry. I was angry and stupid and selfish. I know you can't forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know I loved him. I really loved him. And he used that love to turn me into a monster. The judge raps his gavel. Ms. Whitmore, address your testimony to the court, not the gallery. But I can't look away. My sister, my adopted sister, the girl my parents brought home when I was 6, just confessed to helping plan my murder because she thought sleeping with my husband would make her whole. Marcus Webb stands for cross-examination. He's brutal efficient trying to discredit her. He suggests she's lying to save herself, that the immunity deal is designed to secure a conviction against Ryan while letting the real mastermind walk free. Isn't it true, Ms. Whitmore, that you approached Ryan first, that you manipulated him into this scheme? No, that's not true. But Sterling's redirect is devastating. He brings up the Phase 2 email again. Ms. Whitmore, could you have written that email? No, I didn't even know about the trust fund until you showed me. Could you have engineered a 60% brake line cut designed for catastrophic failure? No, I don't know anything about cars. Sterling pauses. When Ryan called you on the morning of October 16th to tell you the brake line was cut, what did he say? Natalie's voice shakes. He said, it's done. By noon we'll be free. Don't call me again until you hear from Eleanor. Then he hung up. Did you call Camille to warn her? No. Did you call the police? No. What did you do? I waited. Tears streamed down her face. I just waited, like a coward. Sterling turns to the jury. Natalie Whitmore is guilty of conspiracy. She was in an affair with the defendant. She knew about the plan, and she did nothing to stop it. But she was a pawn, manipulated, and ultimately disposable. The architect of this crime is sitting at that table. He points at Ryan. When Natalie steps down, she walks past me without looking up. I don't know if I'll ever speak to her again. But as I watch her leave, I realize Natalie didn't just hand Ryan the gun. She helped him load it all while believing he'd use it to set her free. She never saw him aim it at her, too. The jury deliberates for 11 hours. I sit in the courthouse cafeteria with my father drinking coffee that tastes like cardboard, watching the clock tick past noon, then 2 p.m., then 4. David Sterling warned us this might be a good sign. Long deliberations often mean the jury is being thorough, weighing every piece of evidence carefully. Or it means they're divided. At 4:47 p.m., my phone buzzes. The jury has reached a verdict. We file back into the courtroom. The gallery is packed reporters, courthouse staff, curious onlookers who've followed the trial online. Natalie isn't here. She's back in her Queen Anne apartment under house arrest, wearing an ankle monitor, waiting to learn if her testimony helped convict the man she loved. Ryan sits at the defense table in the same dark suit he's worn every day for 2 weeks. Marcus Webb whispers something to him. Ryan doesn't react. He's been like this since Natalie's testimony blank hollow a man whose perfect plan collapsed and took everything with it. The bailiff calls us to order. All rise. Judge Harold Morrison enters. He's in his late 60s, gray-haired and stern, a former prosecutor who's presided over 100 murder trials. He nods to the jury foreman, a middle-aged software engineer in a button-down shirt. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have your honor. The foreman hands a folded paper to the bailiff, who carries it to the judge. Morrison reads it without expression, then hands it back. The defendant will rise. Ryan stands. Webb stands beside him. I can see Ryan's hands trembling. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, how do you find... We find the defendant guilty. My father's hand finds mine. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find... We find the defendant guilty. On the charge of assault in the first degree, how do you find... We find the defendant guilty. The foreman continues through all 7 charges: conspiracy, attempted murder, assault, felony, harassment, witness, tampering, insurance fraud. Guilty on every count. Ryan's face goes white. His knees buckle slightly and Webb grabs his elbow to steady him. Judge Morrison thanks the jury and dismisses them. Then he turns to Ryan. Mr. Harlow, you have been found guilty of 7 felony counts. Sentencing will be held on August 16th at 9 a.m. Until then, you will remain in custody at the King County Jail without bail. Bailiff. 2 deputies approach Ryan. He turns back toward the gallery one last time, his eyes scanning the crowd. Looking for Natalie, maybe. Or his mother, who isn't here because she's dead killed by the same brake line he cut for me. His gaze lands on mine. For 3 seconds, we stare at each other across the courtroom. I see rage there, and hatred, and something else I can't quite name. Regret, maybe, or just the cold realization that he lost. Then the deputies lead him away and he's gone. The courtroom erupts. Reporters surge toward the doors. David Sterling shakes my hand, professional and composed, but I can see the satisfaction in his eyes. Justice, he says simply. Outside, the late afternoon sun is blinding. News cameras swarm the courthouse steps. Sterling gives a brief statement, something about accountability, about survivors, about sending a message that domestic violence and conspiracy will not be tolerated in King County. I don't listen. I'm watching the sky, breathing air that feels different now. Lighter. Dad drives me back to Madison Park. The house still has the security system Robert upgraded after Ryan's arrest motion sensors cameras, panic buttons in every room. I don't know if I'll ever feel completely safe here again. But tonight, for the first time in 9 months, I sleep without nightmares. 4 weeks later, I return to court for sentencing. Ryan has aged a decade in county jail. His hair is grayer, his face gaunt. He wears an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. When Judge Morrison asks if he has anything to say before sentencing, Ryan stands. I loved my mother, he says, his voice flat. She died because of a mistake. because Camille didn't follow the plan. If she'd just driven to work like she was supposed to, Eleanor would still be alive. Marcus Webb closes his eyes. Mr. Harlow. The judge says, coldly, you are not the victim here. Your mother died because you cut a brake line intending to murder your wife. Her death is on your hands, no one else's. Morrison reads the sentence life in prison without possibility of parole on the attempted murder charge, plus consecutive sentences on the remaining counts. Ryan will die in prison. There is no appeal that will change this. As the deputies lead Ryan out, he looks back one more time. I would have made you rich, he says to me, his voice barely audible. We could have been happy. You tried to kill me, I reply. And you tried to kill my sister. There was never going to be a happy ending for us. He laughs a short, bitter sound. No, I guess there wasn't. Then he's gone. Dad takes me to Canlis for dinner, the same restaurant where he warned me 3 years ago that Ryan wasn't good enough. He doesn't say, I told you so. He just holds my hand across the table and says, you survived, sweetheart. That's what matters. That night, I stand on the deck of my Madison Park house looking out at Lake Washington under a sky full of stars. Greg Sullivan sent flowers with a note. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. Natalie hasn't called. I don't know if she ever will, but I'm alive. Ryan Harlow spent months engineering my death. He cut my brake line, weaponized my heart condition, manipulated my sister, silenced his business partner, and planned to murder me in a way that would look like natural causes. And he failed. Because I came back for my phone. Because I heard him confessing. Because I fought back. Tomorrow I'll start rebuilding. Tonight, I breathe. The months after sentencing are the hardest of my life. In September, 3 weeks after watching Ryan led away in handcuffs, I file for divorce. My attorney submits the petition citing irretrievable breakdown of the marriage, a darkly ironic way of saying, my husband tried to murder me. Ryan doesn't contest it from King County Jail. By November, the divorce is finalized. The Madison Park house registered in my name alone as separate property, a wedding gift from my father executed before the marriage, is mine to sell. I listed in early December, $2.8 million. A tech executive from Amazon buys it in 6 days without asking why I'm leaving. There are too many ghosts. Ryan's study where I overheard his confession. The garage where I removed the ignition coil, unknowingly setting the trap that killed Eleanor. The living room where his hands closed around my throat while my father broke down the door. I can't live with those memories anymore. I moved to a 10th floor condo in Bellevue with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington. Clean lines, neutral colors, no history. Whitmore Realty Group promotes me to Vice President of Strategic Development. The role allows remote work when my hypertrophic cardiomyopathy flares. CEO Catherine Hayes tells me, we don't want to lose you, Camille. Your health comes first. This position gives you flexibility. I closed 3 major commercial deals by March 2025, earning the firm $12 million in commissions. But success feels hollow. I'm running on autopilot, staying busy enough to avoid feeling anything. Dr. Rachel Mitchell, my therapist, calls me on it during our session in April. You're in survival mode, she says from the armchair across from me in her Bellevue office. Which makes sense, you survived something horrific. But at some point, survival has to become living. We meet twice a week. She teaches me about trauma responses, about how betrayal rewires your nervous system, how hypervigilance becomes a reflex, checking locks 3 times, flinching at footsteps behind you, avoiding crime shows because they spike your heart rate. Healing isn't linear, Dr. Mitchell tells me. Some days you'll feel strong. Other days you'll feel like you're drowning. Both are valid. In October 2024, 1 year after the murder attempt, I receive a letter from Natalie. The envelope is postmarked from Washington Correction Center for Women in Gig Harbor. My hands shake as I open it. The immunity deal fell through. At Natalie's sentencing in September, the judge rejected the recommended probation saying, you conspired to murder your sister. Community service doesn't reflect the gravity of that harm. He sentenced her to 4 years in prison, eligible for parole after 2. Natalie didn't appeal. Her letter is 3 pages handwritten. Camille, I'm writing this from a restorative justice workshop. They're teaching us about accountability, the difference between remorse and self-pity. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know I made a choice. Ryan manipulated me. Yes, he saw the wound the adoption revelation left and tore it wider. But I chose to listen. I chose to believe that helping him was justified because I'd spent 30 years resenting you. I let that resentment turn me into someone who conspired to kill her own sister for a man who planned to murder me next. I'm trying to become someone different now, someone who would never make that choice again. If you ever want to visit, I'll be here. If you don't, I understand. Natalie, I don't go. Not for over a year. Instead, I bury myself in work. I attend charity galas, smile for photos, pretend I'm fine. My father sees through it immediately over dinner at his Magnolia home in June 2025. You can't outrun grief, sweetheart, he says gently. You have to walk through it. I'm trying. Are you? His gaze is unflinching. Or are you just staying busy enough to avoid feeling? In August 2025, Greg Sullivan emails me. He's left architecture, started a nonprofit focused on construction ethics and whistleblower protection. I can't undo what I didn't stop, he writes, but I can try to build systems where people like me don't stay silent out of fear. His words stay with me. By December 2025, 2 weeks before Christmas, I find myself driving south on TUI-5 toward Gig Harbor. The Washington Correction Center for Women sits behind layers of fencing and razor wire gray buildings under a gray sky. I sign in at the visitor's desk. They check my ID, scan me for contraband, give me a badge. A guard escorts me to a visitation room that smells like disinfectant and regret plastic chairs bolted to the floor, vending machines humming. Natalie walks in wearing a gray sweatshirt and jeans. She's gained back weight, her hair shorter. She looks older. We sit across from each other, a scarred table between us. You came, she says quietly. I almost didn't. Silence stretches. I study her face, looking for the sister I knew before everything shattered. The girl who built blanket forts with me. The teenager who taught me how to apply eyeliner. The woman who helped plan my murder. I hated you, Natalie says finally. But I never stopped wishing I could be you. I never wanted you to be me, I reply. I just wanted a sister. I know that now. But at 17, when I learned I was adopted, it felt like proof I didn't belong. And Ryan weaponized that. He did, but you still made a choice. I did. Tears slide down her face. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to become someone who'd never make it again. We talk for an hour about her therapy, her work in the prison library, the restorative justice program, teaching her to sit with the weight of her actions. About my condo, my job, my heart condition that flares when stress peaks. We don't hug. We don't promise to rebuild what was broken. But when I leave something in my chest, loosens not forgiveness, but the possibility of it someday. I drive back to Bellevue as the sun sets over Puget Sound, the sky streaked with pink and gold. I can't erase the past. Ryan tried to kill me. My sister helped him. Eleanor died in the trap meant for me. But I'm still here. And maybe inch by inch I can learn to carry these scars without letting them crush me. Tomorrow I'll keep rebuilding. Tonight I breathe. 2 years, 2 months, and 8 days since I overheard Ryan's voice in his study. Tonight I'm at Dad's house for Christmas Eve. His famous lasagna mom's recipe. Though she's been gone 10 years now, his terrible jokes, the gas fireplace crackling. A few of Dad's neighbors are here, people who've known me since childhood, who called every week this past year to check if I was okay. I sit on the couch, careful of the ICD beneath my sweater, the implantable cardioverter defibrillator Dr. Morrison insisted on after Ryan strangled me and triggered a severe arrhythmia. The device monitors my heart 24/7, ready to shock me back to life if my hypertrophic cardiomyopathy causes a dangerous rhythm. I'm still getting used to the weight of it, the reminder that my body carries its own lifeline now. One of the neighbor's daughters, 8 months old, chubby-cheeked, reaches for my necklace. I hold her carefully, letting her tiny fingers wrap around mine. You'd be a wonderful mother someday, her mom says gently. I smile, maybe, on my own terms. After everyone leaves, Dad and I sit on the deck watching the city lights shimmer across Elliott Bay. The December air is cold, crisp, smelling of salt water and pine. You doing okay, sweetheart? He asks. I think about that question. I think about the scars, physical, emotional, legal. I think about Natalie's last letter asking if she can call me when she's released in 2027. I think about Ryan, who will die in prison with his life without parole sentence, and whether someday I'll stop thinking about him at all. I'm not the person I was before, I say finally, but I'm still here. Dad squeezes my hand. That's enough. And for the first time in 2 years, I believe him. Because survival isn't erasing the past. It's choosing every single day to build a future despite it. My name is Camille Whitmore. I'm 34 years old. I have a heart condition that could kill me under stress. My husband tried to murder me by cutting my brake line and weaponizing my own body against me. My adopted sister helped him because she thought his love would fill 30 years of resentment. My mother-in-law died in the trap meant for me, and I'm still standing. I sold the house where Ryan confessed. I divorced him while he sat in county jail. I watched a jury convict him on 7 counts. I visited my sister in prison and told her I wasn't ready to forgive her, but that I was willing to try someday. I built a new life in Bellevue, a condo with no ghosts, a job that values my resilience, a therapist who teaches me that healing isn't linear. I go to the gym 3 times a week within my cardiologist's restrictions. I take my medication. I check my locks only once before bed now, down from 3 times. Some days I'm strong, other days I drown. Both are okay. Greg Sullivan sends me a holiday card every year. His sustainable architecture firm is thriving. He's building things that last now instead of covering up things that were broken. I haven't responded yet. Maybe next year. Dr. Morrison adjusts my medication every 6 months. Your heart is healing, she told me at my last appointment. Physically, at least. The rest takes time. Dr. Rachel Mitchell, my therapist, says the same thing in different words. Trust is rebuilt in moments, not milestones. You're doing the work, Camille. Give yourself credit. Dad stands stretching. Come on, let's go inside before we freeze. I follow him in, pausing at the door to look back at the city. Somewhere out there, Ryan sits in a cell at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, serving a sentence that will end only with his death. Somewhere closer, Natalie sleeps in a prison bunk in Gig Harbor 18 months into her 3-year term, learning what accountability actually means. And here I am, alive. I didn't choose the betrayal. I didn't choose the violence, the courtroom, the nightmares that still wake me at 3 a.m. But I chose to come back from my phone that October morning. I chose to listen at the door. I chose to sabotage Ryan's sabotage. I chose to record his confession. I chose to fight back when his hands closed around my throat. I chose to survive. And tomorrow I'll choose it again. Dad hands me a mug of hot chocolate marshmallows melting on top. We sit by the fire, not talking, just breathing, existing, which is enough. Because the woman who was supposed to die became the woman who chose to live. And that, in the end, is the greatest revenge of all. Looking back, I see how family betrayal shaped every choice I made and nearly destroyed me. Ryan didn't just plan murder. He weaponized my trust, turned my heart condition into a death sentence, and manipulated my sister into believing family revenge was justified. Natalie's 30 years of resentment became his greatest tool, and Eleanor. She died executing a plan born from family betrayal so deep it consumed 3 generations. God gave me 3 warnings I ignored. First, my father's instinct at the wedding. He isn't worthy. Second, the panic attack when Ryan asked about my heart. My body knew before my mind did. Third, forgetting my phone that October morning. God orchestrated my survival through a detail so small, most would call it luck. I call it grace. Don't be like me. Don't ignore red flags because you're desperate for love. Don't silence your instincts to keep peace. Don't let childhood wounds fester into weapons others can use against you. Family betrayal doesn't excuse conspiracy. Natalie's pain was real, but her choices were hers. Family revenge never heals. It only creates more victims. Here's my truth. Survival is holy work. Every morning I choose life over bitterness. I honor the God who kept my hand steady when I sabotaged Ryan's plan. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's refusing to let poison win. If this story moved you, please comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us create more content that matters. Thank you for staying until the end. A final note. The stories ahead contain fictionalized elements designed for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, feel free to explore other options that better suit your preferences. We respect your choice. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and remember you're stronger than the worst thing that ever happened to you.